across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's fast approaching 3 minutes past 10. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for your company. Great to have you on board. If you do miss anything from the show, and why would you do that? We've talked about that before. There'll be letters home. You can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit the subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. And I can stop saying that really annoying thing at the beginning of the show. Let's talk about what we are going to talk about today. Is it all unravelling remarkably quickly? Day 3, only second full day of Andy Burnham's brilliant new cost of living government. We've got latest plan, yet again, something that's not going to make much difference to many people's lives. It's still a good policy, just like yesterday, very much in favour of cutting VAT from 5% to 0% on our electricity bill. Should have been done a long time ago. Why the hell have we got VAT on a necessity like that anyway? Very much in favour of bus fares going back down to a £2 cap around the country. By the way, it was Labour that put them up to £3 in 2024 under one Keir Starmer. But yet again, unfunded. Haven't actually got the money for it. If they can't even fund stuff that just costs a few £100 million, which I'm afraid, although it's a lot of money to you and me, is basically money down the back of the sofa for a government, how on earth is he going to fund the big stuff? I don't know. Building hundreds of thousands of council homes for a start. Oh, reforming social care, so it's like the NHS, free at the point of need. Nationalisation of various different utilities. How on earth is he going to fund any of that if he can't even manage to fund the tiny little things that he's announced, which are apparently going to give us breathing space, in his words, from our bills? Bearing in mind, by the way, the VAT off elect bills doesn't come till October, and that's the same time as when the next price cap comes in, as we discussed a lot yesterday. Oh, actually, our bills are going to go up, so we're not going to feel the benefit of that, really. And the bus fare cut isn't until January, so you can still pay your £3 until then. It's almost like it's not joined up thinking. Anyway, we're going to talk about all of that. We're also going to be talking about various crime stories, not just the horrific details that have emerged of the awful, awful killing of Anne Widdecombe. 21 blows from a hammer to her head. We emerged in the opening of her inquest yesterday. We will be talking about that as much as we can. Of course, that is a live case with the charges of murder brought. But we're also going to be talking about PC Harper. PC Andrew Harper, of course, dragged to his death after getting his foot caught in the back of a rope, which was basically being used by a getaway driver and 2 of his mates after they were trying to steal quad bikes. He was dragged for over a mile at 40+ miles per hour, basically skinned alive and killed in the most horrific circumstances. And 2 of his killers, those who weren't driving the car, 2 of his killers are set to be released early from jail under Labour's plans to tackle prison overcrowding. Something which, interestingly, the early release was being joked about by Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood on a hot mic moment at number 10. We're going to talk about all of that. I'd like to say joining me for the chat today is Conservative commentator Benedict Spencer. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Lots to get through. First question, are you remotely surprised that things with this Andy Burnham, no plan Andy, are already beginning to unravel?
I mean, listen, I'm often accused of being a little cynical, sometimes a little overly cynical. But there's a reason for that, because I live in this country. And actually, yeah, given what we've had before, and given that we've seen this movie before, and sequels don't ever really tend to be better than the original, sometimes, but rarely, I don't think it was unfair for all of us to sit here and go, we give him months rather than years. And listen, he's better at messaging, he's better at spinning a yarn.
Smiley, smiley.
He's trying to do the whole, look at me, I'm cutting this, I'm cutting that, it's all going to be good. He's trying to get the message, unlike Sakir, who came out on the first day and said, I'm going to have to release more prisoners and things are going to be rubbish for the next 10 years. That was a bad start. Burnham understands that that was a bad start, but still, as you and I have discussed before, he doesn't really seem to have much of an idea of how it is that he's going to handle these major, crippling structural issues that have done for repeated prime ministers.
He wants to do something about them, as do we all. And I'm glad he does want to do something about them, and I think he's got his heart in the right place. I really do. But I'm with you, and I've said this before, and it's not that I'm getting people messaging me saying, well, if you're not, you're not giving him any time. It's like, well, hit the ground running. Apparently he had a plan. I said he didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
Everyone said, no, he does have a plan. He's just not telling us it. I don't think there's any evidence so far yet. Oh, rough sleeping, £340 million start for providing homes. I'm really, really sorry, but as we've discussed again many, many times, rough sleeping, the problem with rough sleepers is not necessarily the lack of a home. Yeah. They lost their home as sort of often the last thing that happens in a trail of devastating tragedies and mistakes in people's lives. And often people are victims of, awful, addictions and the like.
Homelessness is a downstream issue of many other things.
Many other things.
You can say, I want to end it, but you'd be better off fixing those things rather than just going, I'm going to sweep them up off the street.
But the bus fare cut, look, one of the things that really riles me is when people, there are two sorts of people who make policy and it's in Westminster. And this is, I get the whole, about the north, that people have different priorities and things. It's people who have access to the tube in London, incredibly efficient way of getting across a major city, especially when there's traffic. People who can afford to own cars, and people who get trains because they commute, or people who, these young men who cycle everywhere and the full kit bankers, I think we call them. But they're the people who are making all the decisions about stuff, completely ignoring the fact that most people, 80% of people, rely on their cars every single day to get to and from work, get the kids to and from school, to do absolutely everything in their lives. And also, people who can't afford cars, the other 2%, absolutely rely on buses. Buses are absolutely crucial to huge parts of the country, particularly rural areas, particularly out of major cities, and particularly to people on no income. So, a cap on bus fares is something I do agree with. I really, really do agree with. I would also agree with a ban on teenagers being allowed on buses ever, because they're basically all feral now. Have you been on a bus lately at school kicking out time? Because I'm going to go with the word terrifying is what I mean by, but there we are. That's not going to happen. Wishful thinking. But cutting the bus fares is fine. The fact that they're cutting the bus fares from £3 to £2 in January, which they put up from £2 to £3, by the way, in 24 under Starmer. Again, like the VAT off electricity bills yesterday, not actually funded. So yesterday it was supposed to be funded by dropping digital ID cards. And then we had Darren Jones popping up, former minister, sacked, going, I think we're fine. That actually was an unfunded policy, so where are you getting the money from? This time we're told it's a £500 million cost. 454 million of that is coming from net zero projects abroad, which were going to be grants and are now going to be loans. We know nothing yet of the faraway lands that we are funding some godforsaken, loony eco project for people who what they really need is reliable, cheap, affordable, and secure fuel like oil, gas, coal. Nuclear power station, maybe. There'll be some nonsense project. It's probably involving an Ethiopian version of the Spice Girls, like they often do. And we were going to be giving them money, but now we're going to give them a loan and they're going to pay it back.
Which they're not.
Which they're not. So that's all a lie as well. But again, it's all just made up stuff. The rough sleeping promise, again, 340 million quid. These are, in government terms, small fry. And they're not even thought through, and they're not even funded. These have fallen apart within hours of being announced. How the hell is he going to build all those council houses? How the hell is he going to fund social care reform? How the hell is he going to nationalise public utilities? How the hell is he going to fund defence? Small matter, the billions of defence, although new Defence Secretary Wes Streeting seems to think that this 3% of GDP by 2030 is not actually on the cards anymore. They can't even cope with the small stuff.
This is why we say everything is downstream, ultimately, of economic performance. You need to create wealth to pay for things. Until that happens, and this country has effectively... I know that people will quibble about the definition. It has effectively been in recession since 2009. I don't care what people say about, 3%, no, 0.3% here or this, that, the other. No. It's been massaged by GDP by immigration
Mass
figures,
immigration,
which is a lie because it's not per capita.
Yeah.
This country, this is why you all feel poorer. Everybody who sits there going, but I feel poorer as a result. There is a reason
most
why
people are no better off than they were in 2008.
Yeah. Your lifestyles have stagnated massively. This country is not growing. If it's not growing, it can't pay for these things. That's what the priority of any government has to be.
If you leave everything else absolutely equal, an ageing population.
Yeah.
All those people who, because of thanks to medical progress and, the Industrial Revolution, you're welcome, world, people are living 10, 20, 30 years longer than they used to, not working, costing a fortune in healthcare and social care and the like. That's actually a good thing. However, someone's got to work out how to pay
Somebody's
for it.
got to pay for all those pensioners. Yes, it's a very contentious issue, and they get very upset when you point that out. They also get very upset when you point out that, for instance, a lot of mass migration has been done at their behest because the state, because we're not creating enough wealth, is not prepared to pay people the going rate for things like care. So we import people from the third world,
and we have to find a house for them.
And we have to find a house for them. They're allowed to bring their dependents, and then after a set amount of years, they get full access to everything in the state. Wasn't the best idea. For some reason, we still haven't reversed it.
I think those people, this is a mad idea, apparently those people also get old at some point.
Yeah.
I know.
And the average care worker who comes from the third world is already in their 40s and 50s. Not an 18-year-old who you can plan in advance for the rest of their life.
50 years of work out of them.
Exactly. Somebody who you might get 10, 15, 20 at best, and then they become part
And they
of the
already
problem.
got kids, so they're already not an extra. I know. It's almost like some of us who've been pointing this stuff out for 20-plus years were right all along.
We've been doing the show a while, haven't we? It's been good fun. Not 20 years, but about half that time.
I look back, people say, I look back, I was talking about this stuff when I was political editor of the Sunday Express. It's in writing, I've got the evidence, I've got the receipts.
It is frustrating.
Of course, I was just a racist bigot then.
No, but it is frustrating because, as I say, you and I have these conversations fairly frequently and now have been doing it for quite some time, and yet somehow the message hasn't quite got through. To a point it has. We now have an insurgent right-wing party that's starting to talk about these things.
I think most voters get it.
Yeah, I think a lot of them do, but
Media class doesn't. I think lots of political
but that's
class
exactly. I think old habits die hard, especially if you're from a cadre of, shall we say, highly educated, that is to say overqualified people who've got lots of credentials, who've got a worldview, who once you reach a certain age, it's very difficult to admit your worldview was wrong the whole way. People don't like that.
Well, again, look, and it looks, in terms of worldview, they seem to be able to change their mind on major policy issues which actually matter. For instance, the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, gave an interview to the Times and then actually spoke to reporters on Monday as well. He backed it up on the day he became Prime Minister, talking about how it was raising personal tax allowance, so from £12,500 and putting that up, and then completely backtracking on that now because we are talking billions and billions in costs for anything meaningful there. Quick U-turn on that. But again, why are you talking about this as something you want to do? I want to give everyone £1 million. I'm
still waiting for it.
I'm going to U-turn
You've been promising
on it.
me this ages.
But also the fact that we've got John Healey, who's now the Defence Secretary, he was Defence Secretary, resigned because he wasn't getting enough money from the Treasury. He's now running the Treasury as Chancellor. And Wes Streeting is the new Defence Secretary. And really early on, we're a day into his job, basically his aide sort of pushing back on the idea that we need 3% of GDP for defence spending by 2030. Even that, by the way, will not be enough in terms of, because the stuff we put into the defence spending budget isn't really stuff that will actually help us defend our country, like veterans' pensions or the money to the Chagos Islands. We'll see. Hopefully we'll get a U-turn on that. We'll support that. Yeah. I don't think we will do. Who knows? But stuff that really matters. I'm so sorry. I think defence spending matters more than rough sleeping. I'm not trying to be heartless. It just does.
Well, it does. You don't want to put it in crude terms. Listen, Russia is not about to invade us, but actually, what does it matter solving rough sleeping if your state cannot control itself because it is being menaced by foreign powers? If infrastructure, systems, IT systems start going offline because you can't defend yourself against cyber attacks, then you'll have a lot more rough sleeping.
Yeah, that's the
reality.
Yeah,
and I know that there's this thing where people go, why can't you just be a decent human being?
No, I want that to be done. But
you can only be a first world benevolent country if you continue to progress and be a first world country. You get the wealth to do these things. Yep. There is a reason why third world countries don't do them, because they can't afford it. It's not because they're bad people, it's because they don't have the money to do these things.
Also, there's also a presidential palace and private jet to pay for.
Depends which country.
But there we are. But OK, look, this thing, and here's another thing that's going to come back to bite Andy Burnham. And again, I blame, a plague on everyone's houses on this. More early release schemes we're expecting in September. This this law is going to pass. And among those who are set for release, and we know this because letters are going out to victims, and a letter has gone to the victim, the widow of PC Andrew Harper. His family have had a letter basically telling them that his killers are going to have their sentence reduced. There's a letter from the Ministry of Justice saying the information may be difficult given the lasting impact the offence may have had on you. Yeah. So when a bunch of 17-year-olds basically are trying to steal quad bikes, and then they get a police officer, PC Andrew Harper, turns up, and they get in a car to get away, and a rope gets tied around his ankles, and they are aware of it, and they continue driving the car over 40 miles per hour for a very long time, for more than a mile along a country road. His uniform was scraped off for him by what happened. His skin was sprayed off, to the extent that when he was found, the emergency workers who found him thought he was a skinned deer. They didn't even realise he was human. That was what happened to this man's body. While, he was basically, flayed alive by these young men, right?
I want to just...
So can I just point out, though, the man driving the car, he's not eligible for early release, so that's something. He's got a longer sentence, this guy by the name of Long. But Henry Long. But Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole, who were both 17 at the time, they were in the car at the same time. They were jailed for 13 years. They were 17 at the time. They're now going to be out after just 8 years.
Just as somebody from the countryside, I think it is worth pointing out, because this is never very deliberately mentioned, these are people from a certain protected community.
The travellers?
Yeah. And again, this is an example of people who were treating... Yeah, as I say, that information was very deliberately kept out of the public eye where possible, because you get certain protected characteristics, quite wrongly. Many people in the countryside know exactly how certain communities often do behave, because they understand that they will be avoided by the police, because the police do not actively want to confront them in case there is a problem.
Yep.
This is how the police end up getting treated. This is actually why, in many cases, why police officers do not like to go to the campsites and this sort of thing, because there is absolutely no qualms about treating police officers with violence by members of these communities. Of course, I have to say, not everybody, but it is a well-known fact that this sort of thing often happens. There, I've just said that bit because it often gets obfuscated. But, again, another example of very dangerous people. Let's be very clear. People who are prepared to behave in that way are dangerous, and there's no amount of small sentences that's going to rehabilitate those, because they didn't think it was serious. They possibly even thought it was funny, because this is often how those sorts of people behave.
This is the thing. I mean, Lissy Harper, they'd only married a month before.
It's a horrific story.
It's a beautiful couple, their whole life ahead of them. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what happened. What went through. And she backed this law. Wanted it a law where basically you automatically got life if you killed an emergency worker. And I disagreed with that. I did disagree with that, but I understand the sentiment. But she will also have had that letter. And it's just extraordinary. This madness, and it happened to the Tories. They didn't build enough prison cells. Letting people out, and they say we have to let people out, otherwise we've got nowhere to put the killers and rapists. It's like, I think there are other people who could let out, but also, again, I don't see why we couldn't, in this time, we've got enough months, build some open-air prisons, and you put I mean open-air, but genuinely, I mean tents. I do mean very basic prisons. I don't understand why we can't put the lesser people, people who have not committed violence in them. This is all going to come back to bite everybody, and it's very interesting. The caught on camera, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, making jokey remarks to Shabana Mohammed, the Home Secretary, and the new Justice Secretary, Alex Norris, picked up by a microphone. They were making a joke at this sort of drinks bash they were having. And in overheard remarks, he said, he goes, oh, no, he's the enemy now. He wants to let them all out. And he's pointing out, this is a reference to an old joke about Theresa May saying, as Home Secretary, she puts them away, and Ken Clarke, who's Justice Secretary, he wants to let them out. He's apologised for this. There was no ill intent behind this ribbing of the new Justice Secretary. She was laughing. He was, Wes Streeting was laughing. Now, I've got two views on this, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. One is, people make jokes, and actually, journalists, police officers, soldiers, doctors, people make jokes about bad things. People make jokes. I'm of the view people can make jokes about anything. Yeah, Holocaust, rape, child abuse. I'm sorry, I'm going to stand by that. I'm a free speech absolutist on that issue. Was it poor judgment? Yes. And here's the other thing. If that was a tape of Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick having that same conversation, or the same conversation that Kemi Badenoch or any of them, if they had heard a Tory or Reform person having the same conversation, Wes Streeting and the Home Secretary would both be absolutely coming in big about how outrageous it was. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, you can't. But I am very firmly of the view that if we want to get back to a position where it is understood that a joke is a joke and not to be taken entirely seriously, you have to be the bigger person. And that actually we can't. Yeah. Sort of those of us who do tell pretty awful jokes a lot of the time.
And I do.
We have to be the ones actually to turn around and go, listen, the next time they do that and they go in hard and say that's an outrageous thing to say, just ignore them because they're being, they're being children. Also, everyone knows what a joke is, and people who get offended at jokes deliberately, overtly, politically, we can all see what they're doing. Yeah. We know it's not really outrageous.
Wes Streeting as well is someone I've always gotten very well with. He was Health Secretary and long before that. But you know, he has written some shocking things on social media. I mean, talking about, you know, wanting to kill people and, you know, I mean, really outrageous stuff that, again, if anyone from another party wrote, he and his ilk would be absolutely all over. The double standards on the left are quite extraordinary. Look, and we saw that, did we not, over Anne Widdecombe and the horrific murder of a 78-year-old woman in her own home, bludgeoned, we found out yesterday, 21 times over the head with a hammer, in an attack caught on camera after the alleged killer walked through an open front door as she ate lunch in the kitchen. There's a camera outside, there's a camera in the kitchen. Now, this is obviously a live case now, and the court dates have been set, and we've had no pleas as yet from the man who is alleged to be her killer, Joshua Kerry. So we don't want to talk about... have to, obviously, for legal reasons, don't want to be in contempt of court, don't want to prejudice any future trial. He has been charged with murder. They're still looking into, from the counter-terrorism police, into whether there was a terrorist motive. But what I found extraordinary, there were two things about this. One, I mean, watching it, I was abroad, but watching it from abroad, first was the extraordinary, absolutely outrageous doublethink from the left about, accusing reformed people of sort of speculating about her death and whether or not it may have had a political motive, as if it was an outrageous thing to do, when they're calling it exploitative, and they're like, for political reasons, when they did exactly the same over numerous other incidents. If they can ever blame it on people being Islamophobic or racist or far right, or anything, they go straight for it. And there are plenty of examples of that. But also, we've got to talk about the police. We have got to talk about what the hell is going on with the police, because the police initially said that they were investigating whether or not she had had a fall, and whether or not it was an accident or a burglary gone wrong, when they had camera footage of the man they have since arrested, the alleged killer, arriving, parking car in the driveway, on camera in her kitchen. They could hear audio of what was said and images of what the court heard yesterday of what happened to her. And yet they were still talking about, I mean, she died on Wednesday, the 8th of July. Her body was found on Thursday, the 9th of July. On the 10th, Friday the 10th, and even on the Sunday, there was still talk about, not sure about intent, motives, not sure whether it was burglary gone wrong. The idea that anyone thought that finding a woman on the floor of her kitchen with half-eaten lunch, with her head having been hit by a hammer 21 times, that it might have been a fall. What the hell? What drugs are they on?
Yeah.
How incompetent are they? Were they lying to us, or were they really that stupid?
Well, that's the problem, and it almost doesn't matter which, because either is horrific. And I think, you know, given that we've had the conversations now pretty much since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister about the issue of two-tier justice, whenever you are confronted with crimes such as these, and they are becoming more and more common, and the response from the police, be it, say, Southport, be it the aftermath of the Henry Novak murder and what we discovered about that, and you are kind of sat there going, which is it, which comes first? Because you are left with almost no other alternative other than to say that the idiocy is informed by the bias.
Yes.
You know, it is not exclusive. There is no question at all that in increasing numbers of circumstances, police officers are being confronted with awful crimes, and rather than go on instinct, they go, now hang on a second, how might this...
Could have fallen off a chair.
Now how might this play if we say the wrong thing, don't want to stir up, don't want to do this, that, and that, I think, is deeply concerning for so many people, because if you have police officers engaging in that form of doublethink, so to speak, before they even proceed with what is their job, they're already thinking, how do we spin this? How do we respond to it? What's the response going to be? They're not doing their jobs. They can't be doing their jobs. And by the way,
this sort of speculation does not prejudice a trial. As a news reporter, I've done my legal training. I've covered enough trials. This doesn't prejudice a trial, any subsequent trial that happens.
It's disgraceful also to see people, commentators, turning around and saying that you can't. Not just the police saying it, but actually Alistair Campbell, for instance, turning around and saying, oh, have you never heard what contempt of court is? Does he use
Well, clearly you haven't,
mate. Exactly, which would explain rather a lot of things, I suppose. But honestly, the way in which so many people responded to this by saying, do not politicise it. It's an outrageous thing to... And given that she was a member of the Reform Party, and this was coming at the tail end of a number of weeks in which the security of MPs and politicians was at the forefront, and those same people were turning around and going, nah, you're just, Reform are just bent, they're on the take, they don't know what's going on, they're just trying to deflect, and then the second something dreadful happens, they go, absolutely do not politicise this, it's not allowed.
And by the way, and I don't know if we've got this image, as Andy No, who's an amazing campaigner and journalist, following a lot of the left-wing violence, as he pointed out, 78-year-old Anne Widdecombe was bashed on the head repeatedly with a hammer until she died. And he points out that Palestine Action is advertising direct action training for people who want to take up military action militant action, I apologise, using hammers. Show the image on the screen. And it's basically got a pro-Palestinian flag, Palestinian flag, someone with a hammer, a big mallet, arms tired from waving flags, work out with a hammer. Direct action training available. Now, this after, by the way, people have been convicted for smashing a police officer in the back, damaging, breaking her spine, with a hammer in action by Palestine Action. Bearing in mind also Bashback, a pro-trans, anti-women organisation, they have also called for you have images of hammers. I mean, This
is uncivilised. It is becoming normalised. The reaction of the police is not, in fact, to come down hard on these people, nowhere near hard enough, frankly. And I'm sorry, but this is what happens when you import not just sort of, frankly, foreign or very un-British sort of cultural issues like Palestine, but when you actually tolerate the behaviour as well. Everybody knows that struggle is typified by brutal violence. We don't want that here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, we're going to be obviously limited in what we can say in terms of phone calls regarding that case. And I really want to focus on the police on that. But what I really want to hear from you about is Andy Burnham. He's made a list of unfunded promises to tackle the cost of living, including VAT off energy bills, cutting bus fares, a huge council house building plan, social care reform. Who's going to pay the bill? Who do you think is going to pay the bill? Well, I guess it's you and me. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text costs £1. Standard network rate message. We'll get to your calls up next. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Lots of you getting in touch about Andy Burnham. No plan, no funding for all the things he's announced so far. Peter's in Liverpool, wants to have his say. Hi, Peter.
Hi, good to see you back.
I was only away for 4 days. I hate to tell you, I've got a couple more holidays planned, one next week. So I just want to warn you about that. Don't be cross with me.
All I'd say is you were missed.
Oh, you're very kind. Duncan Box, absolutely stonkingly good, by the way, let's like to say.
Sorry?
Duncan Box is filling in for a lot of the shows, as well as Alex. I'm more than happy with my fillers in. Anyway, what do you want to say, my love?
I thought I was hearing things before when I heard Benedict say somebody's got to pay for the pensioners. Most of this generation that I'm from, I worked all my life, I paid in, and probably out of all the policies that governments have made in my lifetime, the triple lock was probably one of the only policies that ever worked, because they seem to fail on everything else. Now, we can pay 40 grand for people to be on benefits.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know why we don't class people when they come here as immigrants. They should be based on financial. Are they going to be a benefit to the country?
Well, yeah, I don't know why we're bringing you. Can I say, I've got Benedict huffing and puffing in the corner here. This is the thing. No one's attacking pensioners. We're just saying there is a simple matter of fact that the pension age was set originally at the age, basically, when people died. There wasn't a plan. There was never any funding for people to live for 30 years after their retirement age, which is what people are quite routinely doing now. I'm afraid it doesn't matter if you work all your life. Are you under the illusion that his generation and my generation aren't also going to have to work all our lives and pay in? The money that we pay in national insurance doesn't go in a little pot in the corner of the Treasury with, Peter's name on it or Julia's name on it. It's paid for out of the taxpayers of the year you claim your pension each year. So it doesn't matter what we've paid in. It's going to be the younger people, the 5 of them who are going to be left working in this country, who are going to be paying our pensions.
Yeah, they're raising the age now.
Yeah.
But just my parents alone, the 2 of them, never lived long enough to benefit from a pension.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that money, I don't know.
Well, no, that money didn't exist. It had been spent already.
No, it's not.
That's not how pensions are funded.
No. Andy Burnham, when I seen the streets, Downing Street, full of socialist people supping champagne and laughing their heads off at releasing criminals, it disgusts me.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusts me. And, for a start, Burnham won't go near any of the public. He won't go. He hasn't been near any real journalists. he is. All this is manufactured.
Yeah. You're not impressed.
I really don't like a PM being thrust on me, and this is what's happened.
Okay. Not yet. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to share a lot of your concerns there, Peter. I so appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Nigel, who is in Portsmouth. Hi, Nigel. What do you want to say?
Yeah, about your other call up. Great to have you back on, Julia. You had a great replacement, but it's not the same.
Well, you're very kind. You've got a big head up here. The producers are all rolling their eyes, by the way.
well, I'm sure we're not the only 2 people who think that. Anyway, about Burnham and his promises, and this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Yeah. It's basically, if you noticed, have you ever listened? I'm sure you've listened to Zia Yusuf being interviewed. You've interviewed him lots of times. When he's asked, okay, well, how are you going to pay for this? Boom. He reels out a lot. We're going to save 40 billion on this. We're going to save 100 billion on that. We're going to save 150 billion on this. And then there's no comeback. Why do Labour not get the same questions asked? Certainly by the BBC.
You know why.
But they don't. But anyway, our youngest daughter, she works really closely with the Green Climate Fund. And he's just like, this thing about with the buses, we're going to do that by saving money, basically by not giving it to the Green Climate Fund. Yeah. The Conservatives agreed to give the GCF £2 billion over 6 years. Now, whether that's right or wrong is beside the point. Signed an agreement. This is what we're going to do. Labour came into power and said, that agreement is not legally binding, so we're not going to give that money to you.
Well, no, there's going to be a grant. No, aren't they? They are giving it. It's just it's going to be paid out to these countries as a loan rather than a grant. Okay, they claim they're going to get the money back. They won't get the money back.
Julia, that already, the Green Climate Fund, the last meeting was in Tajikistan 3 weeks ago. I know it because my daughter was sitting around the table, and there was a big hoo-ha between the GCF and the UK, because the UK have basically reneged on a legally binding agreement. And the UK's argument was, but look, America have done the same thing. But the GCF, no, they never signed anything.
Can I just say, though, I'm all in favour of us backing out of nonsense like that. I don't want your daughter to lose her job, but, you know.
No, she's safe. I am too, and she is as well. But that's by the by.
OK.
My point is, Julia, they're already saving that £1 billion. And he's saying by not giving it, so basically, it's using the same money twice.
Oh, yeah, that's what they're going to be doing. They're using money, by the way, which we borrowed because we don't have that money, and then they're going to lend it somewhere else who's not going to pay it back. And then, mate, it's all mad. I mean, we may as well just go to, Wonga and get a payday loan. The same difference. Nigel, appreciate that. I'm going to have to leave it there. They're 10:37 is the time. Quick break. Then we're going to be talking to former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards. Why has it all started unravelling so quickly? We'll ask him. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk. Let's go straight to Paul Richards. He's a former Labour Party advisor waiting on the line. Very good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Very well indeed. Sorry for a slight delay getting to you, arguing about pensions and green climate funds. You never know how this show's going to go. Paul,
I'm sure you're worth the wait.
You are. It's all unravelling a bit quickly, isn't it? Did Andy Burnham have a plan? Had he done any adding up before he became a Prime Minister on Monday?
Well, the fact you're seeing an announcement per day, it's only 48 hours in, and each day we're seeing some new way of putting money back in people's pockets, giving us all a little bit of lift against the cost of living crisis. A very smooth reshuffle with new ministers at the top. We've got the ministers of state last night, and now we've got the next tranche to be announced later on today. He's phoning them all personally.
I couldn't care less.
What
difference does that make to me?
Well, it means that you're going to get a unified government that's getting...
so you get a personal phone call. So, how does that help anybody? Because they get a personal phone call.
It shows that he's got empathy and understanding, and he's a good leader. That's what it shows. And if he can lead the party and the government, he can lead the country.
Hi, Jan. Would you like to be Under Secretary of State for paperclips? Yes, lovely. Brilliant.
Well, one of the reasons...
That's changed my life, Paul.
Well, one of the reasons that the last guy got booted out was because he didn't have quite that personal touch. So I think it does make a difference. And the big reason is we need stability, don't we, Julia?
Okay,
so
this is all great.
Another Prime Minister in a year's time.
We do. This is all great. The trouble is, it wasn't actually an answer to my question. Small point worth making. It's all unravelling. It's all uncosted, isn't it? I mean, you say this is helping us. VAT off electricity bills, 45 quid a year max. That's starting in October. In October, we're also going to see the energy price cap go up by at least double that. So we're not really going to feel it. I don't know what you're planning to spend your extra 86 pence a week that you're going to have saved. But, you know, it doesn't go far, as we established yesterday. Bus fares, all in favour of the VAT cut. Bus fares being cut by, well, back to the £2 they were when the Tories were last in office. Keir Starmer put them up from the £3 cap. All in favour of that as well. Doesn't start till January.
Good, there you go then. So put a smile on your face. The sun is shining. It's all going very well.
It's all going very well. The trouble is, you know, and was it 340 million quid for tackling rough sleeping? So none of this is actually funded. We know from Darren Jones that the digital ID card scheme that's been scrapped, that hadn't been funded, so you can't use that money for the electricity bill cut. This climate net zero project in some faraway land, Lilliput, I don't know where it was going to be, 454 million of that bus fare cut cost is going to be a loan, not a grant, to a country that's, let's face it, not going to pay it back. Who are we kidding? This is all just made up, pie in the sky stuff.
A cynical view of the world.
Realistic.
The government spends £1.3 trillion a year, and to put an extra £1 off bus fares is not going to break the bank. But
hold on a minute. No. Are these measures that are going to change our lives, or are they completely meaningless little trinkets? Which is it? You can't have both.
But £1 off a bus fare for young people is a significant thing. And if you're doing it every day,
but it's a £500 million cost.
So it adds up in people's pockets, and it's only day 2. So what's tomorrow's and the day after?
Well, it's great if we're going to get these things, but they have to be paid for, because we have
government on your side.
We have no money. Yeah, we're borrowing an absolute fortune. We're best part of 3 trillion in debt, right? We're paying 110 billion just in interest alone, not even paying off the debt every year. We've got loads of other things that need to be funded. Every penny that is spent on things like that, as welcome as these measures are, is a single penny that's not going to be spent on something else, or, you know, money that's taken out of people's taxes or added to borrowing. He's not funded any of this.
There's the missing ingredient from your analysis there, which is growth. Now, if we get growth in the economy, and a lot of these measures will create growth. For example, the defence expenditure increase is going to create growth in the British factories and victory.
That would be a good thing. That would be a good thing if it was actually going to happen, because the defence spending, again, we know
we're spending billions more.
Well, we're not, because we know that
that's growth.
We know that that's not actually funded. John, we're going to keep doing this. John Healey, when he was Defence Secretary, when he resigned 6 weeks ago, he pointed out that actually
the eyebrows for it.
Yeah, 3 billion of the supposed 13.5 billion he'd been offered didn't actually. Instead, it was raised to 15. That wasn't costing. We've no idea where that money is coming from. We know that that's completely unfunded in the budget. We now learn, by the way, Wes Street, the new Defence Secretary, doesn't really recognise this idea that we need to get to 3% of GDP by 2030, which is what, weirdly, John Healey wanted to get to and felt was morally necessary a few minutes ago.
I think the feet will be held to the fire, and they will get to that point, because that's our international commitment, our NATO commitment.
And where's that money coming from?
And crucially, that generates growth, because you're getting that million young people who are on the dole or not in employment or training, get them into apprenticeships. Some of these factories that are going to have to open to supply the arms can be built.
That would be great.
And you generate growth, more people paying more tax. That's where money comes from.
Well, that would be absolutely great, Paul. It would be absolutely brilliant if we get those young people in those training schemes, we get them jobs and they're doing worthwhile work and it's helping to defend the country. I mean, I love all that. I'd love if they're building council homes.
Well, then smile, for heaven's sake. It's a great day, you know. We've got 2 days in with new government. It's all going very well.
The trouble is all going very well. The trouble is, Paul, I'm a cynical old hack and I've seen it happen before.
You are.
I've watched them come in and make their promises and I've watched it all fall apart. This is falling apart before our eyes.
You were there for a Labour government in the
I was there for 3,
which had growth in every single quarter of that government up until the financial crash.
Up until the financial crash. Small point worth making.
Yeah, but that wasn't Labour government's fault, was it? That was a global crash.
Deregulation of banking was a major issue in that, but that was partly under Gordon Brown.
Well, I don't think Andy Burnham's going to make that same mistake again. But he does recognise, of course, the need for growth, and also he's going to do things like open the oil fields. He's scrapped ID cards. He's going to put more police on the streets. All kinds of things that talk.
And by the way, things like more police on the streets. Paul, an awful lot of this was promised by Keir Starmer. Here's the thing.
He's just wiped out the Reform majority. The lead in the polls has been wiped out. I saw one poll yesterday with an 8-point bounce, and this is only 48 hours in.
Absolutely. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of people, whether they would support Labour or not, who well,
there's hope in our hearts and a smile.
Well, we can have hope, but
we've got a new government, and it's all going in the right direction.
Paul, I mean, look, we can all just sit and sing Kumbaya, or we could do an interview. Come on, Paul. We all want to be hopeful. Look, it doesn't matter who I vote for. I still want the country to do well, and I need a government that is competent and knows what it's doing. I think Andy Burnham is a nice guy. I've got no issue with him personally. I absolutely detest Keir Starmer because he detests the British people. I don't think Andy Burnham is like that. However, I don't think he's got a plan, and everything that he has done since he's been in power, these tiny little trinkets, none of which are going to make a blind bit of difference to most people's lives in terms of the big scheme stuff of helping people, helping deliver growth, helping to create jobs, helping people with the cost of living. I don't think he's got a plan. I think smiling and talking about hope and change doesn't actually deliver it.
And he's told us he has got a plan. He's going to announce
it. He can tell us it.
And it's going to be about growth in the economy and putting power away.
Do you remember Boris Johnson's plan to reform social care that apparently was ready to go in July 2019? We never saw the light of day of that, did we?
I think that's one of the things you'll see from the Andy Burnham government is sorting out social care, which we know desperately needs.
And how's he going to fund that? Because if it's free at the point of need, we are talking about a massive tax hike to pay for that.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the plan is on that, but if he fixes it, then that'll be a job well done. He's going to get the young people off the dole.
How do you get people off the dole if they're signed off on disability benefits? I mean, it's 3 years and wait for any new assessments, and it's done remotely. There's no extra money for that, and they're still eligible for their benefits. Why on earth would anybody who can sit around watching telly and playing on the PlayStation all day go off and get a job where they're told what to do and have to turn up every day?
Well, the Alan Milburn report into this is full of the diagnosis. I mean, the second half of that is going to be about what do you do about it, but there may be a degree of coercion there, so people have to go out and work or train or take up an opportunity.
You think Labour backbenchers will like that?
I think they will if it cuts the welfare bill, because we don't like a big welfare bill
don't
either.
You? I don't hear any Labour MPs talk about that.
No sign of success from an economy if it's got a huge number of young people doing absolutely nothing. So nobody Labour wants that to happen. The clue is in the name. We like people to be at work. So that's something he can tackle. He's going to rearm Europe and lead on that and defend Ukraine. So these are big, big things. But, you know,
when am I getting my unicorn?
He's not going to announce everything in the first 2 days, but the things you've just dismissed as trinkets, Julia, will help people in small ways, and they, more importantly, set a direction of travel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, the bus fare thing I'm in favour of. But do you know what you're going to spend your 86p a week saving off the VAT coming off electricity bills on?
Well, I might buy some sweets or something. I don't know.
We're back to penny chews again. We'll talk about penny chews. We're going to have to leave it there, Paul.
It all helps.
Do come on again. I mean, I love it. I love a bit of cheerleading. I love that you're happy. I hope you're happy.
I'm very happy.
I hope we all get happy. I hope we can all share in the love bombing very, very soon. I'm a cynical old hack. Former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards. Thank you very much. Benedict Spence, brief response.
Yes, I could do with some cheering up as well. I'm not convinced.
I mean, he really could.
I'm not convinced, but you know, give it a go. Thanks, Andy. That's just the start of the week that I needed. A couple of things being drip-fed that maybe make me slightly less poor. I don't know.
I can't see you on a bus.
Can you not?
Do you think I could see you? I could see you in a sedan chair, but maybe not a bus.
Yes, a couple of people bearing me. Maybe a panker wallet to keep me cool.
10:49 is the time. Up next, we're going to turn to more serious matters. Going to be talking about that early release prisoner scheme and also the latest revelations on the killing of Anne Widdecombe. That's with Chris Phillips. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:51 is the time. Let's talk to Chris Phillips now, as former senior police officer, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, and joined us now. And I'm glad we got you on the line, Chris. You had some tech problems yesterday. Great to speak to you.
Lovely to see you, Julia.
I wish we were talking under happier circumstances. It rarely is when we get you on air, to be fair, but two horrific stories we need to talk about. First, the news that PC Andrew Harper's killers are set for among those many thousands for early release this autumn. PC Harper, Andrew Harper, of course, was the police officer who went to attend, the country said, the theft of a quad bike, when basically three men attempted to escape. Third killer, Henry Long, not eligible for early release, I must state. He's got a much stricter sentence. But the two men who were in the car with him, Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole, jailed for 13 years in 2020 for his manslaughter. This after his PC Harper's foot got caught in a rope, which they were going to try and tow these quad bikes away with, and he was dragged for over a mile, over 40 miles per hour, and was basically flayed alive. Absolutely horrific, horrific killing. And yet the wife, the widow, Lissy Harper, and the mother, Debbie Adams, of the police officer, have been sent letters from the Ministry of Justice saying that the two men in the car are going to be set for early release. I mean, this is just an outrage.
But what does it say about justice that that murderers, rapists are released back into the community, the very communities that they committed the crimes, Julia? And the issue is not only the fact that this means there is very little punishment. It just throws the court system and the police and everything, the criminal justice system, into chaos, because it just shows that it's not working.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's just been a statement from the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. I could keep saying Andy Burnham, remind us it's someone new. He said that the main perpetrator, the man driving that car, who was Henry Long, is not eligible. And he says he will not be subject to any early release. He wouldn't be eligible for that. He would have to go to a parole board. But again, realistically, he could get out. He could get out a lot sooner than his sentence. I mean, he got a 16-year jail sentence because, of course, he was driving the car. At the time, of course, PC Harper's widow was campaigning for there to be an automatic life sentence for anyone who killed an emergency worker. That was something I disagree with. I don't think sentencing and policy should be made by grieving family members in any circumstance. I disagree with that policy. But no one will think that this is a reasonable term for people to serve behind bars. And the madness of letting people out to free the prisons up for other criminals who may or may not even be, even be as serious, dangerous criminals as these men, is mind-blowingly stupid.
It's just crazy, and the whole sentencing system is really corrupt, because when you hear the top-line sentences of 15, 10, 7 years, yeah, you think, well, that's a reasonable amount of time for someone to suffer, hopefully, as a result of their crime. But in reality, it's not that at all. It's half of that.
It's a lie.
And often less.
It's a lie. I hate it when I read things. They say someone's going to serve 20 years behind bars. I'm like, no, they're not. They'll serve 10 if that. I mean, that's the reality. It's a complete lie. Let's also
talk. The public are fed up with this, Julia,
yeah.
That's the key point. It's Andrew Harper was a young man going about his lawful business.
Just got married.
Just got married, he had the whole world in front of him, his lifetime in front of him, and it was taken away by three thugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those people should spend a large amount of their life repaying the debt. Absolutely,
and frankly, just not on the streets, because they're dangerous. They, by all accounts, thinking, oh, it's all all great, good fun. We're dragging a police officer to his death. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't think I want you on the streets. Let's also talk about the horrific killing of Anne Widdecombe. Court heard yesterday that Anne Widdecombe was bludgeoned 21 times over the head with a hammer, and the attack was caught on camera. after the alleged killer walked through an open front door at her home as she ate lunch in the kitchen. There's audio and there's visuals of this. Now, the alleged killer, Joshua Carey, appeared in court for the first time. The 28-year-old obviously faces a murder charge, also still being investigated by the counter-terrorism unit. We can't talk about anything that would in any way prejudice any future trial. We obviously we don't want to be in contempt of court. However, a lot of people are questioning, A, that the police got things so wrong so early on. The police were talking about how there could be, they're investigating the first reports, even her body was found on the Thursday, she was killed on the Wednesday, but even on the Friday and even to the Sunday, reporters were reporting, the police telling them they were investigating whether or not she had had a fall or it was a burglary gone wrong. When they already had camera footage inside her home and outside her home. And I cannot understand for a nanosecond why a 78-year-old lying on the floor, dead, having been hit by a hammer 21 times, could possibly be mistaken as a pensioner who might have had a fall.
No, I mean, it's difficult to explain this, and I really can't. The one thing I would say is that the initial investigation clearly threw up suspects very quickly.
Because a 26-year-old was arrested, and then he didn't release.
They caught two. Well, they arrested two people, one of whom is the person charged. I think they did say, look, at this moment we don't have any evidence that it's a terrorism attack, but we'll keep our minds open. I think it was just a naive thing to say. What they should have said is, look, we've got the man that we believe is responsible, and the investigation continues. You've got to be careful.
Well, they said they'd ruled out. They said no, not ruled. Sorry, they didn't say ruled out. They'd said initially, we have found no evidence that there is any political motivation. And there are meanwhile lots of politicians on the left in the government and the Home Secretary criticising people, Reform and Tory people and people on the right for speculating that about a motive. And obviously we don't want to go into too much of that there. We don't want to prejudice any trial. But the police were, I would say, deliberately misleading. But here's my thing. When they said they thought it could have been a fall, once you found the body in that circumstance, and one would hope they found the video cameras pretty darn soon. I'm sure other people who knew her would say, yeah, she's got security cameras in her home. At that point, how could anyone still be talking about could have been a fall?
No, and that's strange. And I would
it's a
say
lie.
That it's misleading. It is a lie. I mean, it's failure to correct, I think, is the point. I don't know how quickly they got access to the cameras and the camera footage, but there is this thing now that the police feel that they need to keep everyone informed, and to some extent it's the media organisations, it's social media coming out and coming out with all sorts of conspiracies if they don't tell you what they know. And of course, Devon and Cornwall don't deal with a lot of high-profile murders, and I can only think that they jump too quickly with too much information, and with a little bit of circumspect, they would have not said the things that they said.
Yeah, indeed. I just think they're getting themselves into this mess. I just worry about a basic lack of competence and indeed honesty. And as I say, you've been in the business, you know it from your side, but as a news reporter, when I hear certain things, certain phrases, you know kind of what the message is. And again, it was even one of the counter-terrorism people, the government's appointee on this, said that they had been misleading. Obviously, this case will continue. Really appreciate you joining us. That's Chris Phillips. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, we're going to take more of your calls on Andy Burnham, your thoughts on a lot of these other stories as well. Do get in touch. This is Talk. We are, of course, the home of common sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. If you're listening on DAB+ radio on your smart speaker, if you're watching on YouTube or your connected device, great to have your company. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget, if you missed anything for the rip-roaring show, last hour, absolutely, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be talking more about Andy Burnham's plans to pay for his left-wing spending spree. I don't think he's got a plan, but apparently I'm just being cynical, according to a former Labour advisor. The Prime Minister has told his cabinet yesterday to find cuts to fund his new public spending commitments. We've only had a few hundred million, $1 billion and a bit so far, but none of that appears to be funded. How the hell is he going to fund building hundreds of thousands of new council homes, or free at the point of demand social care, or nationalising all those utilities he wants to do that for? We will wait and see, won't we? Plus, Andy Burnham has refused to commit to his new Chancellor John Healey's demand when he was Defence Secretary to increase defence spending to 3% of GDP by 2030. We're Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, weighing out from that as well. So, I mean, we either need it or we don't, do we? I mean, it's almost like John Healey, the Defence Secretary, as was, and now Chancellor. You know, it's almost like if you resigned over that issue as Defence Secretary, maybe you should stand by that belief when you're Chancellor and able to actually give the money to defence. But we'll talk about all of that. I want to hear your thoughts, in particular about Andy Burnham making a list of unfunded promises to tackle the cost of living. Yesterday we had VAT off your electricity bills. Today we've got cutting bus fares. Apparently he's got a huge plan for council house building, social care reform, although he's not committed to the full defence budget, which is needed, at least billions more on the defence budget. Who's going to pay the bill? That's what I want to know. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. You can also message us on X at talkTV. And, of course, calls are charged at the national rate and text cost one. Network rate message. Delighted to say, still in the studio, we locked the door, he couldn't get out. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Good morning.
You'll be hearing from my lawyers about that. You have to stop. The magistrate said you couldn't keep doing that.
We just ply you with coffee and you stay.
You do. I'm actually quite cheap, I'm going to be honest.
You take the coffee away. He's out the door.
This is how you will solve rough sleeping, by just giving people like me coffee and locking the door.
I think that's how all the very, very nice, well-meaning people who come out of Waitrose and Pret in my local area, when they see the people who are living rough on the streets and they give them coffees, and they're on like about their 50th a day, and they're mostly, I mean, I speak to them, I'm basically heroin addicts, and I see them around the back of the supermarket later in the day, and they're like, oh God, not another sodding coffee, I don't want another coffee, I want some money so I can go and buy my next hit. I'm not entirely sure those people are helping. I think giving money to a homeless charity, a rough sleeping charity, who can actually do the outreach work to try and really help people with the actual problems they've got, which are rarely to do with not having a home. Yeah. As we were discussing earlier, that might be a better way of dealing with things. That's not how the Prime Minister's going to deal with it. Rough sleeping, £340 million, you mentioned on Monday, which is going to help dealing with basically buying homes for people who are homeless. I hope that works. I fear, alas, it will not work. But there we are. Yeah. Yesterday we had the VAT off electricity bills, 45 quid a year saving, even though it's not happening till October, and that's when the next energy price cap comes in, which will be, we know it'll be higher. I had a Labour peer yesterday telling me, how do you know that? I mean, because they've literally said it'll be higher, probably double that. So we're not really going to feel much benefit of that. And even if we did, it's 86p a week. Doesn't go very far. I think unless you're a 10-year-old and you're saving up to buy some more Lego, and by the way, I mean, I don't think pocket money pays for Lego anymore. It costs a bleeding fortune, that does. Then I'm not sure how that's going to be funded. We know that's not funded, the electricity bill stuff, because that was supposed to be funded from the digital IT scheme being cancelled. But that, we found out from the former Labour Minister Darren Jones, hadn't been funded either. Bus fares to be cut by a third, from a £3 cap to a £2 cap, basically going back to the Tory policy, which was a £2 cap, raised to £3 for most of the country. It's capped in London. Paid for by London taxpayers, by the way. That's not happening until January. That's costing 500 million. most of that, 454 million of that, apparently is coming from some net zero project in a faraway land somewhere, which is now going to be a loan, not a grant, even though we're never going to get the money back because it's a faraway land that can't pay for its own climate projects and therefore probably doesn't feel strongly about paying that money back. So that's all pie in the sky stuff. We've got the rough sleeping as well. All of that, we've got, that's the best part of £2 billion quid, actually, not really funded. Got council houses to build next. Social care reform, that's what he says he wants to do, even within this Parliament. Got defence budget, nationalisation of some public utilities, Thames Water, hose pipe ban from tomorrow. I'm literally going to leave the hose on all night. All night I'm going to flood my garden so I get as much water on my garden. That would cost alone £2.5 billion. I mean, he's already U-turned on stuff he said to journalists, a number of journalists on Sunday and Monday, about wanting to raise the personal tax allowance of 12.5 grand to ease people's cost of living. Now they're apparently not looking at that. I mean, as I said in the last hour, it's almost like he didn't have a plan.
Yeah, this is the tricky thing. When people talk about the character of Andy Burnham as opposed to Keir Starmer, as much as his allies tried to tell us he's just a decent person trying very hard, was not a decent person and was very bad at politics. Andy Burnham, I do genuinely believe, actually is a much better person than Keir Starmer is. I've met him.
I think his heart's in the right place.
Yeah. But he absolutely does not seem to understand the magnitude of what it is.
And it's not that he's not clever. He's a clever lad.
He is a very clever person, but as is often, to be fair, let's be clear, lots of politicians are pretty bright, but they still don't seem to quite grasp the scale of the rot in Westminster.
I've met a lot of clever people in my time, but people who I wouldn't trust to peel a tangerine.
Yes.
I mean, genuinely, they're just non-functioning in the real world. But also, he could be very clever and have read every word that Shakespeare's written. Does he know how government is funded? I do think that's a very different thing.
It's very often the problem with politicians is partly because they're very bright and they go to Oxford or Cambridge and they read all sorts of political theory and this and that. They've got grand ideas and they have very little experience of how life works. And then they come up against it, they confront reality, having only sort of worked through the party system, and then ultimately they realise, I'm not capable of dealing with it.
They don't know how to run a business, that's for sure.
They don't know how to run departments and that sort of thing, and they're up against a civil service which does know how to run itself and is entirely uninterested in bending to what they want to change.
Or getting anything done.
Yeah.
They've got their own little projects.
That's the setup. And until we have a government that comes in with the agenda of going, this needs to be ripped up and we need to push through the obstacles, that's not going to change.
Very interesting point made by Chris Snowdon from the Institute of Economic Affairs yesterday, which I thought was such an interesting point, which is there are lots of things that are good ideas.
Yes.
And they're often pushed as good ideas. They're so obviously good ideas. Why have they never happened? The reason why they've never happened is it turns out they're not good ideas. Like, well, why not just tax billionaires more?
Yes.
Why not do this? Why not give away this, that? And there's a reason why, and it's because they have completely unforeseen outcomes which actually are foreseeable, and they don't make sense. But I think one of the most interesting things that Andy Burnham knows. He's moved, thank God, Ed Miliband from Net Zero Secretary to Foreign, where he's already jetted off to a foreign meeting with Marco Rubio and others in Asia. And you've got to see the funny side of that. I mean, at least he's going to be out of the country. But he's replaced Ed Miliband with someone who is an even more of an eco-nutter.
Yes.
Meata van Bulle. She used to be at the New Economics Foundation. Again, another very bright, very well-educated person, but proper, full-on. She thinks net zero by 2050 is too slow. It should be done by 2030. Not just the electricity, the full work.
Yeah.
She literally wants to turn back the Industrial Revolution. She's someone who's got numerous degrees in economics. She's genuinely, very well-educated. And yet she thinks that that's a thing, A, desirable, B, possible, and D, C, D, I can't even do my alphabet. I'm not well educated. C, actually something that, that we should aim as a political aim. It's genuinely terrified that this woman is an officer. And by the way, so much criticism of her online, it's a matter of, I would go 3 hours before everyone says, it's because she's a black woman.
Yeah.
No, it's because the things she says and does and has written and wants to do are insane.
Two things. The first is, sadly, in our system now, you are no longer able to tell whether somebody is highly intelligent or highly credentialed based on their academic path. And this is a really frustrating thing, because you don't know until they are in place whether or not you are dealing with a very brilliant person who, because they're brilliant, believes some insane things because they're able to square it to themselves, or somebody who has literally just jumped through the hoops and accrued a lot of debt along the way. Yeah. That tends to be the majority, but still it's possible that it's the former. What I would say about Miata Fahnbuller's elevation, if you like, unlike Ed Miliband, she does not command a huge deal of power within the Labour Party.
That is
so while she may be a net zero zealot, and this is something that you can then spin to the left and say, see, I've got you, your person. This is somebody you're far more easily able to overrule. Whereas Ed Miliband is quite... I don't understand why he's so authoritative, but he is.
He's got a section of the party. And again, he was able to stop, it was Keir Starmer who wanted to actually help let the US use our military bases for the attacks on Iran. Yeah. And it was Ed Miliband who led the revolt on that. And of course, remember when he was Labour leader, he was the one who basically led the revolt against David Cameron offering military aid to Syria.
And what I would say is that Foreign Secretary is not really a real job anymore. A lot of the duties of the Foreign Secretary are effectively now that of the Prime Minister. I think it is very politically expedient to just move him to places like Tashkent or Samarkand or all of these kinds of conferences.
Let's have a campaign. Send him to Tashkent.
We should send him to the most far-flung Oriental places we can think of, and at the exact moment that he touches down past something that he'll hate.
Where's Tashkent? Let's go back to this bus fare announcement today. It comes after that announcement about the electricity bills and VAT. Now, as I was saying to Paul Richards, former Labour advisor earlier on, I mean, I support us taking VAT off electricity bills. I think it's absurd that they're on necessities. And the government's been making a load of extra money whenever bills go up, which is just crazy. Bus fares, the cost of bus fares is absolutely crucial for a lot of young people and for a lot of people living in rural areas and people on low incomes. I mean, good God, you wouldn't get a bus otherwise, Alicia. My main aim in life, genuinely, is I go to work so I don't have to get buses. I'm absolutely serious. Literally, I get public transport all the time, but I hate buses, mainly because I remember going on 5 buses in a short period of time, and on 4 of them there was a violent incident involving teenagers. Quite often teenage girls, they're as feral as the boys. I remember thinking, this is just not somewhere I want to be. I can price myself out of this. Aren't I lucky? Yeah. But other than banning feral teenagers from buses, which is, I think, one option. But, I think cutting bus fares and capping them, I think that is a worthwhile thing to do. A lot of people rely on them in rural areas, making buses more reliable so people can actually, if you live in a rural area, you can actually get to a job and get back from a job. Oh, I'm all in favour of this. But everything needs to be paid for. If you're going to pay for that, if he can't work out the money to pay for this tiny VAT cut, this tiny bus fare cost, the rough sleeping, if he can't work out the money to pay for that, how the hell is he going to fund building council houses, social care reform and all of that?
A lot of it, of course, is pie in the sky, and it is an attempt, I think, to appear optimistic, rather than what we had with Keir Starmer, which was straight off the bat, it's going to be 10 years of drudgery, just with more prisoners on the streets. Whereas, at the very least, Burnham is better at messaging, and he's trying, I think, and we've seen this, of course, with the bounce in his polling at the exact moment that reform is dipping a little bit. Part of me still wonders about the prospect of an early election, but that's, that we'll get to that if we do. The whole thing is about trying to reset how people feel about their government. Now, what I would say is, this has ever so slightly hamstrung us in the past, this absolute sort of deference to what it is for the Office for Fiscal Studies or whatever it is says you have to stick within the rules. Well, the fundamental thing that this country has not had for too long is enough economic growth. If you don't have enough economic growth, you can't pay for anything because you can't actually tax enough. The past, previous version of this government has tried to tax wealth that frankly isn't there anymore. It believes that there's a magic money pot of the super rich, that it's not there, and those people...
They're all super rich, but they're already paying a shed load of money.
Well, exactly. They pay, what is it? The top 1% pays something like 20%, the top 10% pays 60%. Yeah. It's insane, this idea.
The top 10% of earners in this country, by the way, you have to be earning 70 grand plus or something. It's not like these people on... There are plenty of people, I know, if you're on a lot less than that, well, they're very rich. You're on 70 grand, and you live in, particularly in the southeast, you are not feeling rich. But they're paying 60% of all the income tax in this country. And all the people on the left going, we need to tax the rich more. Taxes on the rich people, the top 10% of earners, have gone up a lot. And I don't have an issue with that when times are hard, people with broad shoulders. But there's going to come a point when people are going to go, That's enough.
Yeah, you're welcome, by the way, everybody who insists their pensions aren't quite enough. But the thing is about all of this is that if you cut a few of these things, and as you say, buses are essential for a lot of people to get to work in rural areas where money actually doesn't go anywhere near as far as it does in urban areas. If you want economic growth, these are the little constraints that you have to go, all right, suck it up, because the long-term benefits of getting people back into work, making it easier for them to get to work, and having a little bit more money in their pockets at the end of the day to go out and spend on the economy, it matters.
Can I just have a little rant about the fact that on one of my TV screens, so we'll try and get the image. We've got Andy Burnham. He's in Bath today, which is where I went to school.
Not Tashkent.
Not Tashkent. He's getting out and about in the West Country, and he's standing in front of. I think there are 2 buses. There's certainly one bus, and it's painted all bus fares £2 with a £2 coin. And funded by the UK government. How much did it cost to decorate that bus with that sign? How much did that cost? That's my money. That's your money and my money. It's like us paying the BBC licence fee. And that, I know, like, there's going to be some imagery. You can carry on with. They've painted a bus. I'm sorry, they all got upset about the Vote Leave campaign and what was written on the side of a bus. Why do you need to do that? And by the way, it doesn't even come in until January.
Maybe it was just maybe it was free. Maybe it was just done through the power of can-do Northern spirit, which apparently is how you pay for everything in Manchester. You just roll up your sleeves and get it done.
What do you make of? Our guest Paul Richards, but earlier saying, look, I'm just being very, very cynical. Can't we be happy? Hope and change. There are so many on the Labour benches and Labour supporters, and let's face it, large swathes of the British media who are, absolutely. They're in a tiz. They're absolutely quivering with excitement. They think Andy Burnham is the great way out. Mind you, they thought Keir Starmer was as well.
I think that in particular that was very egregious. The complete failure to hold Keir Starmer to the coals at the crucial moment, because it was easier and more fun to bash the Tories from a lot of people in the British media ecosystem. You're right that there is a lot of this also going on. There are a few key journalists who I have noticed, though, who do appear to have learned from that. I'm not going to name names because that's for other people to decide. I've noticed no, I'm not going to. That there are a few people who last time did not put Keir Starmer under the cosh, who I have noticed this time are trying to be a little bit more probing because they've been burned. They've been burned by this, and they understand that, political reputations, journalistic reputations do actually hinge on asking people these questions. And I don't think they want a left-wing Liz Truss to not see it coming.
And then they're all surprised when I sort of, actually ask the right questions of people.
Yes. They're furious when you do that.
Of Labour or the Tories or Reform or anybody. Love to get some greens, wouldn't I? Let me ask you that. We've been talking about PC Harper, Andrew Harper's killers set for early release, these 2 men. Not the guy who drove the car that dragged him and flayed him alive after he found them basically trying to steal quad bikes all those years ago, but the 2 men who were in the car with him, who were supposed to be serving a long sentence and really are not, and the family of PC Harper have been told they are going to be set for early release. And then we've got that audio, this little video sort of caught on hot mic of Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, laughing and joking with Shabana Mahmood, and also, is it Alex Chalk, the new, no, Alex someone,
not
the
Alex
new,
Chalk.
again, I don't know about you, I can't keep up with all of them, the new Attorney General, and basically saying, he's the enemy now, because, he wants to give away, he wants to let them all out, and having a joke. And we were discussing earlier, weren't we, it's not a laughing matter when dangerous killers are out on the street.
Yeah.
But people do laugh and joke, and I would like us to have politicians who are normal and who have normal conversations. But the left has got to stop having double standards on this, because if that was a tape of Nigel Farage or Kemi Baden or any of the ministers or any of their shadows or any of their spokespeople, Labour would be absolutely all over it.
Yeah, there's 2 types of British person. There is the person with the traditional sense of British humour, which is all-encompassing and often pretty dark.
Yep.
And there is the performative Puritanism. And now, I thought we'd shipped most of those people to the colonies in the 1700s. Apparently, a lot of them are still here. I'd rather we didn't indulge that performative Puritanism. Yep. I've got no problem with Labour, Tory, any MP making a joke, even if it is very dark, and some people get offended. Colour. I'm fine with that because
Alex
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Yep.
That's the point. It's not meant to be taken seriously. That's literally the point. Now, when it comes to, as you say, the double standard in all of this, I do take your point, but I just think we're not going to get to that stage if people on the right then go, oh, well, isn't it outrageous that you've done it? No, You just have to ignore it when they do the performative pureness. Next time it happens, and it will happen, and they go, isn't this outrageous, going to cross myself and all that sort of thing, you just go, I don't care. I don't care. It was a joke. Go and give yourself a Chinese burn in the corner if you're that outraged by it. It's not interesting.
Exactly. Look, we've talked a lot about Anne Widdecombe and this awful news about her being, as it emerged in court yesterday, battered 21 times over head with a hammer. Just a suspect, of course, has been charged, and obviously that case is sub judice. And we don't want to in any way prejudice any court. But again, lots of questions being raised about the police and what they've said in the wake of her body being found. Could have been an accident, burglary gone wrong. No evidence of any political motivation. The ongoing investigation into whether or not there is a terror side, motive behind the murder with which a man has been charged. And of course, we haven't got a plea yet. But it is just extraordinary. These sort of stories just don't go away. And when you've got convicted killers and rapists, domestic abusers and others being let out of prison very, very, having served most of their sentences aren't long enough for most people anyway. And then they serve a pittance of it. And yes, these people, weirdly, they do go on, a lot of them, to commit crimes. And particularly when there is lack of preparation, when so many people get released early to free up spaces, that they, so that someone who's written a hurty tweet or misgendered someone can be put behind bars. I mean, that's the reality. It does defy belief. This is why I said really early on about Andy Burnham, is that he's got exactly the same issues. He's got the same backbenchers. He's got the same international situation in terms of wars. He's got exactly the same, financial hits, the same borrowing, got the same pressures. He's got all, the same ageing population. Yeah. He's got all of the same problems. But he's also got, day-to-day events that are going to be happening. And things like, whoever was in charge a couple of years ago was going to release a load of people early, whether it was the Tories, whether it was Labour, whether it was Reform. They would have done that. No one is getting to grips with any of the real issues, which is we need to build a shed load of new prisons, not over the next 5 years, in 5 weeks, so we can put these people behind bars. We need to be taking things on. We need to be in almost a war footing when it comes to defence spending, dealing with long delays in people getting cancer treatment. I mean, sorry, people shouldn't be going back to Romania to get cancer treatment because our waits are so long. We are becoming a third world non-functioning country, and meanwhile the entire British public is going, I'd like some more money spent on this, please, but don't put my taxes up. We are living on the never-never, in never-never-land, talking about castles in the sky. We've got a Prime Minister who does exactly the same. I don't see any hope at all of any reality check.
Just on the cancer thing, it's actually been the case that Eastern European countries have had better healthcare outcomes than we have for a really long time. And I'm afraid this is a thing about the NHS that goes back for almost as long as we've had it. Until we're prepared to get to grips with that, we just have to accept it's not fit for purpose. People will leave. They'll go to Romania. People even go back to Ukraine and Russia, who are from those places right now, because the treatment is better. Fundamentally, you don't have a working society if defence doesn't work, if you cannot uphold law and order, and if you are not creating wealth to pay for other things. Deal with those three things, and you will start to see the recovery.
And fat off electricity bills isn't going to make the difference.
Exactly.
Andy Burnham, speaking of Bath, for that bus which we've all paid to be redecorated, he's just been talking about spending priorities. And again, this is the same bump that he was saying at Cabinet yesterday. And it all sounds nice, but it's simply not true. He said, I will always be honest with the public. Ending rough sleeping, the bus cap, and the removal of VAT off electricity bills are all fully funded. That's simply not true, OK? We know factually that's not true. People will say, how? I've reprioritised some of the things the government was committed to, like digital ID, which we know had not been funded. Unless Darren Jones is lying. Well,
I mean, let's he's a politician. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, still no mention of immigration, still no mention of the actual really, really important stuff that has a massive impact on everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who's going to pay the bill for all these things? Does Andy Burnham have a plan? Love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Let's get straight to your calls on 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Wendy, who is in Cumbria. Hello, Wendy. What do you want to say about our brand new Prime Minister and his spending priorities?
I'm almost lost for words. Bear with me. I couldn't believe what he's done about capping the bus fares.
Yeah.
We moved from a Manchester area where we all lived and grew up many years ago. We were Labour people. Mm-hmm. My first husband was a Labour councillor. Yeah. And, of course, I did all the gopher work with my young family, as one does. My second husband was a councillor.
When do you get through them?
Bear with. And we came into Cumbria, which was just overtaken then by the boundaries change of things.
Okay.
And we're in a Liberal Democrat area. Yeah. The first thing we did was realise that we were in a Liberal Democrat-run county.
OK. Wendy, I'm going to have to be a bit cruel and ask you to get to the point, because you wanted to talk about bus fares.
Well, we came to live here because there was a bus stop at the corner of the lane.
So there was actually
we could go anywhere. Yeah. And absolutely anywhere. We both had bus passes. Yeah. Because we were retired, and then found that we couldn't go anywhere without a car.
Why? Were the bus routes stopped, or?
They cut the buses in 2001.
Right. So a long time. So bus fare cap is all very well, but if there aren't any buses in your local area, that doesn't really help.
We have to get a taxi, which is £8, to go into town to get a bus.
Oh, that's mad.
That's crazy.
That's mad.
Then you can go almost anywhere on an empty bus, a totally empty bus. Yeah. You can travel all around the Lake District. And then you've got to get another taxi back. Right. Which for me meant it meant standing on the corner in a very drafty part of town, waiting for a taxi to bring me home. Yeah. And a very big expense. Yeah. So, it's basically, you need the buses to actually exist. I mean, there is a trade-off, isn't there? Look, if you move to some remote area, you're not going to be expecting to have a bus going by every 10 minutes. But if you move there, where there was a bus service and now there isn't, that's very hard. Wendy, thank you for your call. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Let's go to Dan, who is in Portsmouth. Hi, Dan.
Hello, Julia.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, good show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just astounded that he's getting away with, I think it's called a kind of dead cat policies. He's coming out of all this stuff he wants to talk about. Yeah. But he's not talking about the things that are the zeitgeist of the day, the things that people really care about, the things that are going to win and lose this next election. And, and everyone's falling for it. We're all talking about bus passes and, VAT cuts on bills, and we want to talk about mass uncontrolled immigration. Yeah. We want to talk about net zero. They're the policies that are going to win and lose this election. Yeah. They're the policies that are bringing down government after government. And benefit cuts, exactly, those three things. And until he does that, I don't understand how he's getting any credibility from anyone.
But exactly. But again, you've got to remember, a lot of the mainstream media, they don't care. They're fully signed up to the net zero madness, fully signed up to mass immigration, and they're the ones who, every time there's an attempt to even vaguely cut benefits, go, oh, look, we found some incredibly fat woman who apparently says she hasn't eaten for 3 weeks and she's at a food bank.
Yeah, but the trouble is, we've all got to take. I'm sorry, you guys have to take a little bit of the blame as well, because you regularly have that hit the ball Lord Fawkes on the radio station. and you don't put his feet to the fire.
I try.
He comes out of all this poppycock. He comes out of all this nonsense. He lies. He basically lies. I was absolutely jumping up and down the other day, and you know, he's just got to be. It's like with question time, the Prime Minister's question time. You just got to not let him move on until he answers the questions. Turn his mic off, and then just ban him. Get rid of him. He obviously wants to come on. Just get rid of him. Don't have him on anymore.
Well, I'll tell him that next time. I'll tell him that. All right. Listen, Dan, thank you very much. We take your point. Thank you very much. 11:32 is the time. Up next, someone I know you will want to hear from, Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. He's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk. 11:33 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest, Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. A very, very good morning to you, Trevor.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well. Well, apparently I'm a cynical old hack. That's what I've been told by one of my guests a little bit earlier, Paul Richards, a former Labour advisor, who is full of beans and excitement. I mean, among many people, certainly on the left, and let's face it, an awful lot of the media, quivering with excitement about this new Prime Minister, with his wonderful communication skills, eyelashes, and plan to change Britain. And it's all very exciting. And apparently I'm just being a bit of a party pooper by not joining in. But, I mean, the reality is, Andy Burnham has already exposed the fact in his first few announcements that he hasn't actually got a plan, the numbers don't add up, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, does he?
No, it's a shocking situation. I mean, this is a man who's literally grabbed the job from under the nose of the rest of the party with the connivance of a supine cabinet who are now going to pay dearly for the privilege. I mean, look, the most exquisite choice in this particular administration that's just begun is the appointment of John Healey.
I've already done that. I think we're betraying our age.
Too many Healeys. So John Healey is the Chancellor who resigned as Defence Secretary and brought down the Starmer government over the issue of defence spending. He now handles the thorny issue of defence spending, which he will decide. Yep. And he has to find suddenly £20 billion to deliver the promise that he wanted delivered when he was Defence Secretary and resigned because he couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Now, how's he going to square that circle, Julia?
Well, indeed, and Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, is already distancing himself from this whole 3% of GDP by 2030 pledge. Which, you know, and again, this is what we're supposed to be doing under our NATO commitments anyway. And quite a lot of what we're spending, the current, 2.3 heading to 2.7%. Again, a lot of that money isn't actually money that's actually in any way defending our country. As important as veterans' pensions are, that doesn't actually help us defend ourselves against Russia or China or Iran or anyone else. But this is it. John Healey's got a lot of credibility because he resigned on a moral matter, on a matter of national defence and security. Very credible. I thought it was actually a brilliant choice of Andy Burnham to forget all the Shabana Mahmood and the Ed Miliband, who's it, you know, who he, she, and then point John Healey, not factionalist, grown up in the room, worked in the Treasury, knows how it all works, and a man who's established himself as having a bit of a backbone. But if he doesn't go through with the spending on defence that he's already said is vital, then he's going to be a busted flush within minutes.
Well, one of them is, look, I was impressed too, as you were, Julie, when he grasped this nettle and made John Healey the Chancellor, I thought, cracky, that's a bold move and seems to signal the direction of this Burnham-led government from here on. And straight away, as you say, Wes Streeting is already backing away from it at 100 miles an hour, and he will continue until we're back where we are, which is not funding our defence. But John Healey has nothing to lose now. He is actually Chancellor. He cannot be sacked after 2 or 3 weeks, months, or whatever it's going to be that he stays in the job, simply by doing what he promised to do when he was Defence Secretary. It just wouldn't work. It would blow up in everybody's face in this particular government. But this isn't the only thing, is it? I mean, already, although they've got no money, not only have they got no money, they've got massive national debt, which is costing a fortune to finance in interest rates. He's feeding away billions here, billions there in cuts on VAT, on electricity, on bus fares. And, 2 or 3 billion here, 2 or 3 billion there, it all begins to add up. And we haven't got 2 or 3 billion to begin with.
No, and indeed, and the thing about these things that he's already been announced, they all sound very well. None of them come into play before October or January. But actually, they are chicken feed compared to the real cost of living that people have seen and the rising in terms of how much your energy bills have gone up, how much your food shopping bill has gone up, your rent, your mortgage. We're saying most of the average earner in this country, their standard of living has not gone up since 2008. It's been that bad in terms of lack of growth and the like. And there's nothing, as some of our callers, Dan's just pointed out on the phone, he's not talking about any of the real concerns. I mean, I think bus fares should be capped to help people who need to use buses. However, what about mass immigration? Maybe people would have more money for bus fares if they could get a better job. We had growth. If they could afford their housing and it was cheaper because we didn't have, 10 million more people living in the country than we had 20 years ago and hundreds of thousands more arriving every single year. Maybe we weren't spending hundreds of billions of commitment on net zero, we would have more money. We weren't paying 18-year-olds to sit at home because they claim to be anxious on a Monday morning. He's tinkering at the edges, but there's no evidence that he's willing to grab the bull by the horns and tackle any of the big issues.
None whatsoever. And, I'm not sure I agree with you about capping bus fares. I think that councils should spend their money more wisely than they do. And if they did, they'd be able to make sure that bus fares weren't overpriced already.
But local council funding has plummeted from national government, and they've got things they are statutorily required to spend money on in terms of social care and education.
That's the point at which Burnham should start, getting rid of the statutory obligations which absolutely penalise local authorities, who then have to do crazy things like introduce 20-mile-an-hour speed limits so that they can fine everybody who goes at 21 miles an hour or parks in the wrong place because the meters don't work because they're on some sort of grid. But there are ways in which you can make the local government much more efficient. And what he's going to do, he's planning to do, is to make it chaotically more inefficient by handing powers to those local authorities over such things as taxation. Now, we have no record of any success whatsoever in this country of the sort of delivery at local level of the sort of things that should be done at national level.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would say quite the opposite indeed. I mean, hello, Birmingham City Council, for instance. Can I ask you about some of the other appointments? I mean, their new Energy Secretary replacing Ed Miliband, who's already jetted off to foreign climes hilariously as, a complete climate change zealot. But someone who's actually even more of a, full-on climate change hysteric is the new Energy Secretary, Net Zero Secretary, Miata Fanbula. She used to be head of the New Economics Foundation, proper full-on leftist, thinks that we should go to net zero, not by 2050, but by 2030. And I don't mean just electricity, I mean everything. That's literally meaning you have no central heating, you don't have a car, you can't get a train. I mean, we are talking about turning back the clock on the Industrial Revolution levels. Anyone who thinks that's a good idea, or achievable or desirable or possible, or the voters will put up with it, I mean, I'm sorry, you are bat beep crazy at that point. It's as simple as that. But she's been appointed. Does that tell us about Andy Burnham's, plan of action? Because one of the ways that, for instance, Reform and indeed the Tories now, getting on that bandwagon, are planning to make a load of savings in government expenditure, is to drop a lot of the net zero stuff. If he's going to carry on pushing forward with that, there is no reindustrialisation. There is no AI boom. There will be no growth. There is no country that could achieve any of those things with renewable energy as their main purpose in life.
Well, I think it would be almost impossible for any rational person to find someone more bonkers than Ed Miliband for the job of destroying our industry. And yet, somehow, Andy Burnham has managed to achieve this. And I think, frankly, that this is the beginning already of the end of the Andy Burnham show. If he's going to carry on like this, he certainly will find that his ratings will fall, and he won't have the Burnham bounce for an early general election, which I thought he might want to do so that he could grab a full 5-year term for himself. That is not going to be possible. He's going to be found out, if he hasn't already now been found out in his first week in office, as the man who has not a clue how to run a country, how to manage the economy, how to deal with the key issues of mass immigration. And, you know, that's something he simply hasn't mentioned so far. And these are, and crime and the early release of people from prison, these are all going down like a cup of cold sick for most of the people he's going to rely on next time to return him to office.
But this is the thing, so much on the Labour benches and the left wing generally has been, and in a lot of the media has been, you know, but he's such a great communicator, and the problem with Starmer was he was a bad communicator. But that wasn't the problem with Starmer, it was the policies and his failure to communicate and his utter disdain and contempt for the British people, by the way. Small point worth making. I mean, they're mistaking all of that. There's no evidence. I mean, again, the devolution thing, again, not going to solve anything, not going to improve anyone's lives. And this tinkering around the edges doesn't tackle the fundamental issue of the abject lack of growth. And none of the things that he has said so far suggest to me he really understands how you could achieve growth. In which case, again, all these hopes and dreams that everyone have sort of planted on Andy Burnham and his lovely eyelashes, they're going to be blown up very quickly.
I think people will tire very rapidly of the charm of Andy Burnham. And I think that you actually nailed it just then when you said that everything comes back to policy. Yep. Everything comes back to policy for one simple reason. Policy affects the way we live, our lives, our daily lives. It affects our economic policy, our defence policy, our education policy, our welfare policy, our health service policy. And on none of these fronts does Andy Burnham have anything significant to say. And indeed, in most cases, it is the reverse of significant. I really do. I'm amazed, actually, how quickly this is beginning to unravel. Yeah. And in the meantime, while he's failing to deliver the sort of policies which will change our lives for the better, he's appointing and sacking people either who will make things worse or who will cause him trouble on the backbenches. Serious trouble too. They're out for vengeance. Oh, there's no doubt at all. I mean, this was supposed to be, you know, ending factionalism, but there are an awful lot of very angry people who are now out on their ear, aren't they? A lot of them actually celebrating in the pub with Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Can you imagine a worse night out at the pub than with those two? I mean, good God. Just want to ask you very briefly about 3 of the appointments he's made. Louise Haigh is his first Secretary of State. She's the one who apparently masterminded his victory in a safe Labour seat as a Labour MP. But she's a convicted fraudster, as we know, and it's not something she did in her youth. She was in her late 20s in a senior job, and she's got a conviction, which she then lied about in 24. That's why she lost her job as Transport Secretary. She's back in a very senior role. She, though, had to be stripped of oversight of the Fraud Office. Obviously, as a convicted fraudster, that wouldn't look very good. But she is, interestingly, going to still be in charge of ethics, which is extraordinary for somebody who not only lied but also committed fraud. Angela Rayner is back in her old job as Housing Secretary, but she didn't get, very mysteriously, didn't get fined for not paying £40,000 in stamp duty she owed on her second home purchase. But she also got a £17,000 exit payment. 10 months later is back in the same job. Should she have to pay that back? And also, Anna Sarwar, the leader of the Scottish Labour Party, the first major figure to call for Keir Starmer to go. He is understood to be getting a business minister job, joining the government from the Lords. And it is fascinating. Pretty much anybody who called for Keir Starmer to go, who basically slagged him off, is being offered a good job. And people who are loyal to Keir Starmer are out on their ear. I'm wondering, you and I called for Keir Starmer to go from pretty much day one.
Why haven't we been offered jobs?
And why haven't they offered a job back to the minister in charge of as landlords, who was actually sacking her tenants, kicking her tenants out, and replacing them at higher rents?
Or Tulip Siddiq, convicted of corruption in Bangladesh.
Yes, exactly. This is snouts in the trough. This is corruption. I mean, Louise Haigh has talked about having mislaid a phone, which she subsequently found in a drawer and started using. And it was only when a signal popped up that the employers that I'd say, stolen that phone from, she can sue me if she doesn't like that description, that they discovered that the phone wasn't lost at all. She hadn't been mugged.
Yeah. Well, she claimed she was mugged, but she thought the phone had been stolen. Mugged,
but she said that the phone was stolen during the mugging. And there is no evidence that I can detect that she ever lost the phone. She didn't lose the phone. And how can you think that you've lost the phone when you were carrying it, obviously, at the time this alleged mugging took place? Now, look, I don't want to get bogged down in that, but what you've got is a very ugly bunch of people with bad records, and they're in charge of our country, and it's very worrying.
Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us on that. Benedict Spence, your thoughts on any and all of that?
Well, I don't think actually that this sort of rejigged government fills people with any sort of hope that much will change in terms of, just bringing back people who have previously left in the last 18 months under a cloud. At the very least, when the Tories were sort of wheeling people back in like Cameron, they'd been out for a while and we'd been able to forget what they'd been up to in the meantime. But we're simply sort of reshuffling people who are only recently left. And I think in particular
in disgrace.
The reappearance of Louise Haigh, who it turns out has been part of this sort of plot for some time
for
now.
Over a year,
so
she said,
Yeah, it doesn't even sound as if the dust had settled on her departure before Andy Burnham was sort of elbowing her going, well, how about it then? Lucy Powell perhaps said a little bit too much there. I think that kind of gives you an idea of where their priorities are and actually how much credence they give to things like convictions for fraud when they throw them at, say, people who are a part of the Reform Party. It's one set of rules for them, but if it's a Labour MP that's like, that's just a mistake, somebody just made a mistake and you can come back from that. But if it's Reform, oh, no, beyond the pale.
Yeah, and also that's someone giving money as opposed to someone in the actual job.
In government.
11:48 is the time. We'll take a quick break. Up next, we're talking about defence spending and also what's going on in Iran with Tom Sharp, OBE, former Royal Navy commander. This is Talk. Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk, the home of common sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go straight to my next guest. He's Tom Sharp, OBE, former Royal Navy commander. Joins us to talk about, well, various defence stories in the news. Good morning to you, Tom.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Let's talk first of all about defence spending, because we had only 6 weeks ago John Healey resigning as Defence Secretary from Keir Starmer's cabinet because he wasn't being promised the money from the Treasury which was needed to fund defence. It was 28 billion that was asked for. He was only offered 13.5 billion, and that wasn't even 3.5 of that was just made up money, wasn't actually in existence or funded. And then we were told the next Defence Secretary was going to get 15 billion, but again, still the same issues there. That money hadn't been funded. Now we've got John Healey in the Treasury. He's the man who gets to decide, what money goes where. Suddenly this commitment to 3% of GDP by 2030 being spent on defence sort of disappeared. What do you make of that?
I think it's too early to say for sure. I mean, it's an extraordinary proposition that the man who resigned over the failure to commit, the Treasury to commit, is now in charge of the Treasury, and I have to say I think it's a positive one, and we should. I mean, I'm sort of normally glass half empty when it comes to the defence spending, but on this one, let's let it run. I mean,
you think he will deliver because his reputation is going to rest on it, and by the way, the country's security.
Right. He will have an enormous in tray, and he'll quickly find that his beloved defence is just one small part of it, no doubt. So the question is, how much time does he allocate to this? How much of the rest of the Treasury can he bring with him? And I think, extraordinarily, the new Defence Secretary, for the first time in probably living history, will not be ideologically at loggerheads with the Treasury straight from the off. That is unique.
Yeah.
And both of them need to work very, very closely to ensure that remains the case. With the Prime Minister, let's find out what his intent is, what's his plan, what's his strategy, where does he want us to sit in global strategic defence terms. And the three of them come together and they form a strategy that's properly resourced, and they do it very quickly and then and then implement it.
And again, one of the key things about defence is it shouldn't be done the way around with how much money have we got? It should be, what are our threats? What do we need to defend ourselves with? And then finding the money, because it's not an optional thing like tackling rough sleeping or VAT on energy bills.
Right. I mean, it's a staff course cliche, but this is ends, ways and means. And if those three are not in balance, then you don't have a plan. You don't have a strategy. So what are our end states? How are we going to do it? What's it going to cost? And I think the extraordinary thing is, staff college students could do this really well in a day.
Yeah.
So that's what they need to do. They need to have grown-up conversations now and be honest with each other. That is one of the things that was so sorely lacking in the previous sort of iteration of these systems. Be honest. What is the current state? Where do we want that to be? And what's it going to cost?
Yeah, well, indeed. And that's, I think, what we had in John Healey. It's going to be really interesting because, and again, as my previous guest just pointed out, actually, it would be virtually impossible for Andy Burnham to sack John Healey in these circumstances if he spent the money on defence and took it from elsewhere, in which case he's got a wonderful opportunity to do what is needed by the British state. Let's also talk about where we are in Iran, because we've got, is it the 10th or 11th night in a row when we've seen a bombardment of Iran by the US. Donald Trump has vowed to punish Iran for the deaths of US soldiers. 3 American soldiers killed recently, 2 in Jordan and 1 in Iraq. When we've seen those strikes on the Gulf allies by Tehran. Basically, I mean, it's ongoing. It's carrying on going. We're in, was it the 5th month of this war, from a president who promised, like pretty much every president, that we get America out of forever wars. We've seen some polling suggesting Americans are increasingly unhappy with the war taking place, deaths of servicemen and women, also the price of gas, which they fill up their cars with when it's over $4, which they think is expensive, not to us, but a gallon. They start voting for alternative parties. We've got the midterm elections in November. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, the way out of this is eluding the best brains, of which I'm not one, but we're all talking about it. And, how does he get out of the hole he's currently in? Because if anything, it's getting gradually worse. We've returned to escalatory strikes. The idea that there's a mighty vengeance that America can lay down on Iran has been proven many, many times to not be the case. And that's not to belittle the US military. It's a function of the way Iran has configured themselves to be hard to strike. And we're seeing it again. And now they're producing newer weapons. They're using Chinese satellite technology to defeat some of the American interceptor, electronic warfare interceptor systems. Now the Houthis are raising their head again. I'm always surprised how long that's taken. That could just be a ruse to get more money out of Saudi. I don't know. Let's see. But if the Bab el-Mandeb is shut again, that cuts off the Yanbu pipe that has provided a decent amount of relief for the Strait of Hormuz issue. So, this is connected and not getting better. And there is no military option, satisfactory military option, that doesn't result in a high degree of risk and a huge amount of casualties.
And yet there's also the argument for, continuing the job, finishing the job, and at least achieving one of the war aims, because we still don't know whether there's been an achievement in terms of tackling the ability of the Iranians to develop nuclear weapons. So their ballistic missile stock obviously depleted. Well, so is America's. And now they've discovered they can have control of the Strait of Hormuz. I have to say, I'm still flabbergasted on a daily basis that the Americans didn't plan for them to seize the Strait of Hormuz and seize control of it straight away, and that they haven't gone back in and taken control of it. That has been such a ceding of power that has left the Middle East in a worse place than it was before the first strikes in February.
I think that's the reason why no one's done it to now. There was a lot of confusion over the language when it came to closing the strait. Everyone's going, well, they'll never close the strait because it's not in their interest for their exports. China wouldn't allow it. That's not the same as controlling the strait. Yeah. And anyone who's been involved in that plan or been there, as I have many times, will know the assets that they've spread over thousands of miles of coastline that are specifically configured to achieve what they're doing today. And talking about winning and losing isn't helpful language here necessarily, but if you talk about achieving end states, then Iran is achieving their end states. They've got control of the strait. They've got a voice in the global commons. They're likely, all these MOUs come out with them looking pretty strong with some form of sanction relief.
Memorandums of understanding.
Sorry, sorry. They seem to lean in their favour a lot of times. They look worse than the JCPOA that you and I have discussed in the past. And the regime's still intact in some form or other. So they're achieving their end states. The US end states, as you say, have varied throughout. The nuclear one, I think it's virtually impossible to ensure they never search for a nuclear weapon.
Well, even if it's just 10 years, 20 years. If I were Israel or any of the Gulf states, I'd take that.
Yeah, so I think a delay to that would be good, but how do you reopen the strait by force? That's the exam question, because that is now the strategic weapon, and that I don't think it's achievable. And the fact that we haven't seen any US destroyers in the strait for weeks now,
that's the giveaway.
Yeah.
No, right. But again, this is it. When America, when any democratic state is up against a country like Iran that does not care two hoots about the deaths of even thousands, let's face it, even millions of their own people, and in a country like America, and Britain's the same, who will grieve the loss of 2 or 3 servicemen or women, you cannot have a war. It doesn't work because the American public, the British public, democratic publics won't put up with it.
Right. You can beat them up to hell, and that's what's happening, but you can't beat them down to 0%.
Yeah.
That's the problem, and it only needs to be 1 or 2%, as the Houthis proved for 18 months. That was the extraordinary thing about stumbling into the Strait of Hormuz issue, was that the Houthis had shown America how hard this is, and you're right, they will lose legitimacy.
Yeah, we'll have to leave it there. Tom Shop, OBE, former Royal Navy Commander, also US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth telling Congress that Pentagon's running out of money. Yeah, what a surprise. Well, anyway, big thanks to Tom Shop and also to all of you for your calls and things so far. First up, after the news, we're going to be talking to the Labour peer, Lord Maurice Glassman. We'll take more of your calls, more from Benedict Spence, lots more top guests, lots more top topics. Do keep your calls coming in. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's 2 minutes past midday. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, great to have your company. Don't forget, if you missed anything from the show so far, and why would you, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. You certainly don't want to miss the next interview. Coming up, we are going to be talking to Lord Maurice Glassman about, well, how he thinks Andy Burnham is doing and who's going to pay for this new spending spree, because it doesn't look like anything he's talked about so far is actually costed, and he hasn't actually tackled any of the really big issues at all. Some things like, the I word, immigration, not even mentioned. So we're going to be talking about that. Also going to be talking to Maya Forstetter from Sex Matters about civil servants face being sanctioned, whatever that means, losing their job, even, who knows, if they fail to use the preferred name or gender of a transgender colleague. So being forced to lie. I will not be forced to use incorrect grammar by anybody. I would be losing my job in Whitehall. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. You've all been getting in touch. Lots of calls on the board. We'll get to as many as we can in the next 20 minutes or so. Andy Burnham making a list of, let's face it, unfunded promises to tackle the cost of living, including VAT off your electricity bill, cost of cutting bus fares, a huge council house building plan, apparently, and social care reform, which means it will be free at the point of need. Where's the money coming from? We'd all like to know. And who's going to pay the bill? I have a funny feeling it's going to be you and me. Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text costs altogether now one standard network rate message. Right now, Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, will be back with us very, very soon. But delighted to say joining me in the studio now is Lord Maurice Glassman, Labour peer and founder of Blue Labour. A very good afternoon to you.
And to you.
You're very chipper, as a lot of you Labour folk are, well, apart from everybody who got sacked by Andy Burnham, 11 cabinet ministers, various other folk, feeling a bit hard done by. Darren Jones, definitely not going quietly. But you, a lot of you, seem very, very, very chipper about how it's all going. So what do you make? We're on second full day, third day of Andy Burnham in office. We've had 2 or 3 different announcements so far. Is it going well?
Well, as they say, Julia, early days, but I'm much happier with the look of it. I'm very pleased about John Healey being Chancellor. I know him, I respect him. And it also means that my obsession, which is defence spending and restoring the integrity of the armed forces, John Healey is not going to refuse Wes Streeting an increase in
Wes Streeting is the new Defence Secretary. He has already been basically distancing himself from this pledge for 3% of the GDP on defence by 2030.
I don't want to get technical. He's distancing himself
not technical, it's the actual
from the war bonds that I did. Which
is how Germany's funding their spending, so it's not a crazy idea.
I really like the idea. I mean, I want defence spending at 5%. I really do.
Oh, I'm with you all the way. But do you think that John Healey, because his moral stance and his resigned, do you think that means it is impossible that he will not have basically said, I'll take the job of Chancellor, which is a very credible appointment for Andy Burnham?
Yeah.
I thought we played an absolute blinder with that one. It's not Ed Miliband. We could all give a sigh of relief for that. Even you, but does that guarantee that we are going to get the spending on defence that we need?
Yes, but there also needs to be another thing in defence.
Can I say, do you know that, or do you believe that? Have you been told by somebody? Maybe has John Healey told you that?
John Healey hasn't told me that, but
just asking.
That is a shared assumption, let's say, that has been discussed. Having resigned on the issue of lack of defence spending...
He would look very stupid.
No, it would be out of the question.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, if you know John Healey, you'll know that he's not that... He's not chameleon-like.
Okay.
In fact, he's about 300 years old and he's been in every Labour government since 45.
Yeah, I'm not sure that having worked in the Treasury under Gordon Brown, I mean, is necessarily the CV point you think it is.
I wouldn't
That's up there with working in the complaints department of HBOS with Rachel Reeves.
I would agree with that, but what I'm saying is but what needs to happen is a restructuring of the MOD. It is the case that there are more civil servants than soldiers. That has to change. And then there's the whole issue the one I'd ask you to keep an eye on is this Kanishka Narayan as Minister for AI. He's got a very, very big role now in restructuring government, how it works. So I think that's going to be the principal...
Good luck with that, with the British civil service. Apparently everyone's working really well. We had the Cabinet Secretary looking... I mean, she was looking so happy sitting next to Andy Burnham yesterday. Here's the thing. Big announcements we've had so far. Rough sleeping. 340 million quid. VAT off electricity bills from October, 45 quid saving a year to households, funded apparently by a digital ID card plan being scrapped, which is a good thing, apart from the fact that that was never actually funded, according to Darren Jones, who was the Treasury Minister, so actually it's not funded. And by the way, 86p a week. I know there are people who will be struggling, but I think unless you're a 10-year-old and you're saving up for Lego, I'm not sure 86p a week is going to make a blind bit of difference to most people.
Either way.
Especially when your off-gen energy cap is going up by twice that at the same time. Bus fares cut by a third to £2, back to where they were under the Tories, by the way. £500 million cost. Apparently, and this is from next January, 454 million of that is coming from a net zero climate fund for some faraway land, for some climate project there, which is no longer going to be a grant, it's going to be a loan, which you know and I know is never going to be paid back. This is building castles in the sky nonsense. None of these things go to in any way tackle the real cost of living. None of it's funded. If he can't fund a couple of billion quid, how the hell is he going to, you know, build thousands of councillor houses, reform social care, tackle any of the other big issues like spending on defence? Come on.
Yeah, I agree. Look, all of those things are small potatoes, really, in the general scheme of things. The problem for the British state is the enormous welfare budget and the enormous cost of civil servant salaries. These are the fundamental...
About net zero?
As well.
What about immigration?
OK, let's just...
No, but look, I mean, you know...
OK, so Shabana's still at the Home Office. And Shabana, I think, has been an exemplary Home Office politician. I really do support her. And there's no indication that that will change. So I'm OK with that. And then we've got Pat McFadden at Welfare, who's a serious human being who's looking at this. That's why I mentioned the AI as well. All of this, £2 there, 89p here. The real challenge is to industrial strategy and defence spending, which has to come out of essentially state and welfare reform. That's the key issue.
But this new brilliant Prime Minister, who you like the look of it more than you did Starmer, he's not talking about dumping net zero. He's appointed a new net zero secretary who is even more insane on this issue than Ed Miliband. He has not mentioned immigration once, as far as I can tell. Talk about moving civil servants to the north of England. They're going to get a bonus if they agree to move to the north of England, for goodness sake. I mean, this ain't going to cut the number of civil servants, it's going to increase it. And no word at all about tackling welfare. He's not talked about tackling any of the biggest issues, any of the big spending issues or the biggest problems in our country. And he's talking about reindustrialising. You can't reindustrialise if you've got net zero. They're mutually exclusive.
Did you notice, by any chance, that it was announced that there would be drilling recommenced in the North Sea?
Well,
Julia,
whether there is already licence, they're already licensed, but not granting new licences.
Yet. What I'm saying is that there is that is a very significant shift in the weather that North Sea oil will be reactivated. It is obvious to any sentient human being that there needs to be a mix between nuclear renewables and fossil fuels. Everybody understands
that. Well, not the net zero secretary. The new net zero secretary, Miata van Buller, she has written... We're not talking about something she said when she was a student, something she's written in the last few years. She's wanted net zero to be achieved by not 2050, 2030. That means literally turning the lights off.
And she was part of a whole wave of people who said all this. They're all quietly backing away. All I've heard from her today is, I'm going to be pragmatic. What I'm saying is, without cheap, abundant energy, none of this is possible.
Well, exactly.
So keep your eye on that one. What I'm saying is, it's, you know, you listen to a lot to what
so
people
she doesn't believe the things she said a few years ago. I mean,
we're all allowed.
I would worry. I'm someone who keeps receipts. I think the stuff that people say as teenagers or as students and everything, I can forgive. Even, you know, early 20s. When you talk about people who are grown-ups, you know, married with kids with serious jobs and big degrees and diplomas in their name, if they are still saying stuff that's certifiably insane, I think we should hold their feet to the fire about these things.
I completely
So people who,
agree.
for instance, think that some women have penises, or that we could end all our reliance on fossil fuels by 2030. I think that shows a level of stupidity and insanity that means you are unfit for public office.
With cowardice as well. Add that into the mix.
But you think these people are fit for you? I mean, you think that Ed Miliband and Miata Fanbula are fit for public office?
For well, that's not exactly my cup of tea, but I do have met a lot of people who even 5 years ago talked complete nonsense about women and men and gender. They don't talk about it anymore. I think we're entering a different zone.
So they were lying to us, or they're less insane? I mean, which is it?
Well,
this is the problem.
I think that there's something called, it's the last thing you want to hear when you go to the doctor, Julia. It's progressive. That's the point. That there was a progressive disease that went through people, that they up is down, right is wrong. I think
Do you think that people who ever believed that you could have net zero by 2030, that you could rely on unreliable renewables to give energy for factories and all of our feed and all our homes and everything, and that some women had penises. Do you think those people should ever be allowed to be in charge of a corner shop, let alone a government department?
Not if they still hold those views now.
But it's okay to have held those views.
Well, I take a merciful understanding that
I don't.
I get that. I don't really either, Julia. You're pushing me to the point. Obviously, I've fought against all that nonsense.
Because the thing is, because a lot of these things, they're either stupid, crazy, or they're lying to us. All three of those things, they all should be a barrier to start being in public office.
I want to add a fourth, which is cowardly. There was a period. They're terrible. There was a period where all these NGOs, all funded, were going nuts. I was pushed and pushed and pushed about gender, that one, and the environment. I didn't play, but I'm not holding myself out. It's just nonsense to me. But what I'm saying is, I don't think this government's about all that stuff. About the gender thing, there has been a High Court ruling. That has to be enforced.
Well, this is the thing. Bridget Phillipson, she's basically had her job snatched by Lucy Powell, the Deputy Labour Leader as Education Secretary. She's still kept hold of Equalities Minister, and although she's been demoted, she's going to be allowed to sit. She's going to be allowed to bring tea into the Cabinet.
For women.
Equalities and Women's Minister. OK, but she's the person who deliberately held off, basically providing the guidance on that Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, and I thought that was terrible. This is just going to be exposed as nonsense.
But Andy Burnham chose to keep her in that role. If he's not someone who's signed up to all this madness, wouldn't the first thing you say is, Bridget, love, I've got nothing personal, but you've been crazy on this issue and divisive, and you need to go?
No, I can't. These types of appointments, they do elude my understanding as they do you.
What about convicted fraudsters, First Secretary of State?
Yeah, I've taken a merciful attitude on that one. Let us see what she
Has Labour taken the same merciful attitude towards George Cottrell, who's a convicted fraudster, who has been donating money and help to Nigel Farage? Because there seems to be a lot of criticism of him for taking the money. So it's bad for someone to take money from someone who's a convicted fraudster, but it's OK to put a convicted fraudster who lied about it back into public office, in charge of... technically, her brief includes being in charge of oversight of the Fraud Office, but that's been taken away from her, obviously. But she's going to still be in charge of ethics. A lying fraudster.
Yeah, it's a phone. Look, with Louise Hay, I do see that there's some talent there. Let's see how she does.
What's her talent?
She's a very good political organiser.
Well, we're told she masterminded this Makerfield by-election victory for a very popular local Labour mayor to get into a safe Labour seat. I mean, wow, she must be brilliant, Maurice.
Well, before Makerfield came, look, I was watching that very carefully. Reform won all the seats in the council election before. Yeah. So that indicated to me two things. That Andy Burnham did have affection in the North West.
Yes.
That was true. And just note, Julia, that in the by-election campaign, the 6 weeks he spent in Makerfield, I noticed quite a significant change in his language after that. He really wasn't talking about men going into women's toilets. He really wasn't.
Which apparently he doesn't think anyone has a problem with.
And he really wasn't talking about rejoining the EU either.
Maybe the good people, the good folk of Makerfield will be educating him.
I think we owe them a huge debt.
What about Angela Rayner, back in the same job as Housing Secretary, no longer Deputy PM? She's been urged, though, to return that £17,000 exit payment she got.
Yeah, she's got some...
she's got to hand that money back, hasn't she?
I think that's clear. But I do have affections for Angela Rayner. I think she's a distinctive politician.
In what way?
Is that she actually has some feel for ordinary life.
There is a fetishisation, isn't there, in... let me stand up there. Can you sit down again? We're not on camera. There's a fetishisation in Labour of... And we had this, didn't we, of Bridget Phillipson as well, by Keir Starmer. She grew up in poverty. And Angela Rayner... There's this fetishisation of working-class poor. But anyone who didn't grow up in a middle-class household, like, oh, well, they understand things and they can relate to voters. No, I don't think you should be in any way... I think God knows people should never, be criticising somebody who's come from a much harder background. I mean, I think her life story is incredibly impressive and speaks well for her.
It is Angela Rayner you're talking about.
Yes, but there is a fetishisation. It's
I don't go for that, and I don't compare Angela Rayner to Bridget Phillipson. I think...
Who was poorer? I mean, that's not a competition, is it?
I think Bridget Phillipson doesn't engage with people in a meanful way.
No, there is that.
But I've seen Angela at work, and there's something also quite funny about her.
Oh no, I've had a couple of very enjoyable drinks with her.
Yeah,
she won't come on the show anymore though. But there we are. Let's come back to what the Prime Minister is planning to do though, because as we say, he's not. He's talked about things like the electricity bills and bus fares, and these things can there'll be popular moves, except they're not going to make, and we both agree, a much difference to people's lives. Building, hundreds of thousands of council houses will. Reforming social care will make a massive difference to the huge number of families who are forced to sell homes because their loved one has dementia as opposed to another problem in later life. But these things cost so much money. Nationalisation of some public utilities. These things cost billions of pounds. Do we have any idea, or does he have any idea, and do we have any idea of what his idea is, of how he's going to fund any of this?
Yeah, so I think that's why I mentioned earlier in the conversation AI and Kanishka Narayan.
How is AI going to build a council house?
OK, we're talking about reprioritisation and finance. We did a study of the Department of DWP.
Yep.
Turns out that 70% of the work of the civil servants was answering emails.
Yeah.
Where can I get my
doing that lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is there has to be. Then there is actual welfare reform with McFadden, and I know
Labour backbenchers don't want welfare reform.
I think
they're their voters.
Yeah, I think Labour backbenchers have had a near-death experience, and I think they'll be a lot more compliant and amenable to the direction of the government this time round.
We'll see how that.
I'll come back and we'll talk about that,
yeah.
but. I see a genuine understanding that this is the last chance for a genuine Labour government. There is, at the moment, a trust in the direction that Burnham is articulating. And I think that when the serious welfare proposals come out, I think there'll be a much more compliant PLP.
Keir Starmer couldn't even get through not a cut in welfare spending, but
a future cut.
No, it wasn't. It was a cut in the. It was a small cut in the rise in welfare spending.
Yeah.
So that he couldn't even get through a cut. We are talking about, was it a couple of $100 billion going on benefits, a lot of which is for people who need it, but a lot of which is for people who don't need it. Is there any evidence that Andy Burnham has looked at this enough and has a serious plan for massively cutting them? He says he wants to do things differently, a lot more carrot than stick. The reality is, if you're a 21-year-old who claims you're anxious on a Monday morning, and unless you have your benefits taken away, unless you're required to put on a jumpsuit and go and clean the streets to get your money, you ain't going to go to work.
Yeah, so I can't answer for Andy Burnham, but I do know that Pat McFadden is a serious reformer, that this is absolutely obligatory if we're going to have any of the defence spending in the industrial strategy.
Yep.
These are the realities, Julia, of actually having a government. And what I'm confident in is, well, we've actually got a serious core. If you look at if you look at John Healey and then Shabana and then Pat McFadden and then...
I know that you're not mentioning the Foreign Secretary there.
No, I'm not mentioning him.
Just keep him off the streets, keep him on a plane somewhere. Contributing
maybe
to
not a plane.
carbon emissions.
Maybe he should go by bike.
But fundamentally, you know as well as I do, one of the things as a founder of Blue Labour, you've been very much in touch with, let's face it, reality, rather more than a lot of other politicians. Immigration is still a top 3 issue for voters across the country. The huge impact on our economy, on the cost of housing, getting your kids into a decent school, waiting for the NHS. And I'm sorry, most immigrants are not working in the NHS. They are patients of the NHS. The huge cost of the welfare in the future and now, all the impacts of that, competing for jobs, everything there. Legal immigration is a huge cost to society. Yep. It makes it cheaper for businesses to pay lower wages, but it's not. It's not better to anyone else. The cultural impact, the crime impact from certain communities, and then you've got the separate issue of the illegal migration and the huge cost of that, and the housing and the crime aspect of that. Is there anything that you can point to that suggests that Andy Burnham has any intention whatsoever of dealing with either of those issues?
Yeah, keeping Shabana at the Home Office. I mean, she is the leading Labour politician in terms of trying to deal with precisely that issue, and there was no
She's
question.
already talking about watering down the plan for indefinite leave to remain after just 5 years. It's wanting to put it up for 10 for the Boris wave of 2.3 million people.
I've never really had her down as a watering down kind of person, so
come back and talk when she does. That'll be interesting.
But yeah, I'll come back and talk when she doesn't.
Okay, give me a summary though. I've been told earlier I'm a cynical old hack. Why do you think that Andy Burnham is going to do so much of a better job than Keir Starmer did?
Well, first, he actually represents a Makerfield seat.
Not Islington.
No, and he's not a human rights lawyer. By the way, we haven't rejoiced together about Richard Hermer leaving.
Oh, yeah, we did a lot of that on Monday.
But please, let's
Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, Mr Chagos. Do you think he's going to backtrack on the Chagos nonsense?
I think he has to. I think that's absolutely essential.
Okay, so you think basically he speaks human...
No, it's not just that he speaks human, it's that he represents a seat that is a working class seat. And one thing about him is he's good at he does hear. I mean, you've got to notice over the 6 weeks of the Makerfield campaign, he was almost speaking differently at the end of it. I mean, he heard...
That tells me he doesn't know what he thinks.
Yeah, but it also means that he's got significant skills, first of all. But secondly, he has appointed a core group of reformers which didn't exist before. He got rid of the grip of the human rights law on both our domestic and foreign policy. And this really is the last chance for Labour to actually prove it could be an effective government.
When he's got a 10-year plan, that would involve him winning not just the next general election, but the one after that. Think that's going to happen?
For the first, I thought that would be inconceivable, but with Nigel Farage's cracking up, and, you know, Napoleon said about anybody who came to want to be a general, he only had one question: are they lucky? And it looks like Andy Burnham might be lucky.
Well, there we are then. Love to hear your thoughts on that, everyone. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. We'll get thoughts, Benedict Spence as well. Lord Morris Classen, it's always such a pleasure having you in the studio.
Lovely to be here.
Labour peer, founder of Blue Labour. Thank you very much. This is Talk.
Thank you.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 12:26 is the time. Benedict Spence back in the hot seat, Conservative commentator. I have to say, I always like getting Lord Glassman in. He is a breath of fresh air in terms of a very straight-talking, I would say, very honest Labour politician. I just worry that an awful lot of the Labour Party that's actually in office doesn't actually listen to him.
I mean, the Labour Party of yesteryear, this may surprise people to know, it used to actually have some quite intelligent, quite well-read, quite thoughtful people.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I know it's bizarre, but once upon a time it used to be a party of significant heft. And nowadays, I do think that Lord Glassman and his ilk are very much the sort of... They're almost like the leftovers. They're the oddities. They're the sort of the
they're
things
also
in the
the people... They are the Emperor has no clothes on people.
Yes.
They are pointing out the reality.
They are, but as you say, the party doesn't like that, if we're being honest. And, you know, we understand about the need for sort of party unity and discipline and all that, but when the consensus is insanity, that's not brilliant, is it?
No, you make a fair point. Let's go to your calls, 0344 499 1000. Martin is in Nottingham. Martin, you want to have your say, and Andy Burnham. Who's going to pay the bill for all these pledges, eh?
That's it. I'd just like to briefly say that the 7 things that this country desperately needs to actually survive, this socialist won't do any of them. Just quickly, he's not going to defend the country. The population explosion is going to carry on. He won't end the net zero nightmare. The police farce should go back to a police force. It won't. We ought to deport all the foreign criminals, all the illegal immigrants, and we ought to halve the welfare bill. He might get 10 years then, but you know what? He's not going to do anything, is he?
I've only got 6 there. Have I missed one?
Defence, population explosion, net zero, police farce, deport all the foreign criminals, deport all the illegal immigrants.
Separate, right. I had those down as one, yeah. I mean, I'm in favour of all this. Here's my thing about that. Who, with their right mind, isn't in favour of all those things?
Yeah, that was really what I was going to ask you. I said, what? But apparently, I've been told by actually my own relatives that, if I look at it that way, I'm a bigot.
Well, far right, definitely far right.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing. This stuff is, again, this is really basic stuff. And it's the sort of stuff which, by the way, was considered to be mainstream and accepted by all major parties until 10 minutes ago.
That's it, yeah. And I can't believe that such logical things are not carried through. But he won't. Do you agree with me? And Andy
I do. I mean,
I
think to run to be Prime Minister and to do no serious interviews where you're. I mean, I'm really sorry his dad's got dementia. I don't know why I need to know that. What I need to know is what you're going to do about welfare reform. And to not walk in and have an absolute plan. I think it's an insult to the British people that anyone, including Keir Starmer, wants to, and Boris Johnson as well, wants to be Prime Minister without a plan. I mean, what an insult.
That's right. Well, thanks anyway for taking the call.
No, thank you for calling, Martin. Appreciate that. Far too much sense. That won't go down well. Tom is in Reigate, wants to have his say. Hi, Tom.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Hartley-Brewer.
I'm not a Mrs. I'm a Ms. I wouldn't take my husband's name.
Oh, you're naughty, you are.
Yeah, but it means he and my daughter get to have a much happier life.
Anyhow, listen, this Andy Burnham, mate, is worse than Starmer. I mean, he's just give you a nice cheap bus ride if you want a couple of quid for a bus ride. The few pence he's give you off your eating bill, it won't even touch the sides. He's going to go all for net zero still. And we're just going to be paying more. We're going to be paying more to use the car.
Yeah.
The petrol's just gone up again, quietly. It's gone up to 156. It was about 147.
Yep.
It's just everything's going to cost more money. And he's tried to get in twice before to the Labour for the main seat. He's absolutely a waste of space.
You are not impressed. What do you make of all these people going, oh, he's such a good communicator, it's such a big change? And
it's only easy to say I'm going to do everything for the British people. And what's he going to do? He's going to help all pensioners and people who ain't got no money. What's he give you a few pence on your eating bill? I mean, it's not even going to help anybody. It's not going to help.
Hey, listen, sorry, Tom, 86 pence a week off. Come on.
Lovely. Yeah, won't even buy a pint of milk.
No, we established yesterday it's 86 pence would buy 2 pints of milk in Sainsbury's. And 450 millilitres of light mayonnaise in Tesco. We looked it all up.
Yeah, lovely. Let's look forward to a lovely future of worse than what we've just got rid of.
Wow, Tom, I'd call you cynical, as I was called earlier by a Labour advisor. Tom, thank you very much indeed for that. Going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to be getting to the nitty-gritty of economics with someone who clearly understands rather better than the current Prime Minister, economist and Telegraph columnist, Liam Halligan is up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
12:33 is the time. Benedict Spence is still with me. I'll get his thoughts on what my next guest has to say. He's Liam Halligan. He's an economist. He's a Telegraph columnist, and he's also author of the brilliant Substack, When the Facts Change. A very good afternoon to you, Liam.
Great to be with you, Julia, as ever.
Very well, thank you very much. We've got a bit of a distortion on that line. I'm not quite sure what's going on. A bit too loud, but hopefully we'll get that working. Right, the question we've been asking our audience, and I can't wait to hear your answer to this, is these promises to tackle the cost of living. This is the cost of living government, he told his cabinet yesterday. VAT off our electricity bills, cutting bus fares. Apparently he's going, well, we're going to help for rough sleepers, huge council house building plan, social care reform, nationalising utilities. Who's going to pay the bill, Liam?
Well, you know, this is Andy all over. We've both known him for a long time, haven't we? He's a nice guy, he's empathetic, he's a people pleaser, he's a vibes-based politician. In that sense, he won't thank me for saying this, but he's a bit like Boris in a bomber jacket. You know, he wants to be loved. You'll be using that soon. You heard it here first. But I do think he faces an appointment with reality, Julia. You know, in the first sort of 48 hours of his government, we've had a couple of bungs, tiny in the grand scheme of things, but still completely unfunded. And we've had the Prime Minister talking about finding new flexibility within the fiscal rules. Oh. You know, this is not clever politics. The 10-year gilt yield, what the government pays to borrow, is now firmly above 5%. And it hasn't been firmly above 5% since 2008, Julia.
Can you explain that? Because I worry that not only do most of us not understand what that is and the significance of it, but most of the politicians, including I worry people in the Treasury and certainly the Prime Minister, who, when asked to explain, for instance, the fiscal rules, went, oh, I'm not doing that. There's no way in the world the man could have explained the fiscal rules. Explain what guilt is, just briefly, and why it matters. What
sure. So a gilt, it's just the nickname for a government bond, an IOU. It's when the government borrows money and it gives a big pension fund, a big insurance company, big international investors that bestride the world, not individuals, but big institutions. It gives them a bit of paper that says, we will pay you back this money in 10 years' time. And in the meantime, we'll pay you a certain rate of interest.
And it's so we don't have to raise taxes now.
And it's so the government can borrow and doesn't have to raise taxes to pay for absolutely everything. The trouble is, Julia, we've been borrowing a hell of a lot in recent years. Last year, we borrowed £137 billion. And of that, 110 billion, we used that borrowed money to pay interest on existing debt.
which is insane.
Which is complete madness.
I mean, this is payday loan stuff. Yeah. This is literally like the blokes with tattoos.
It's what you call a Ponzi scheme. Yeah. Gilts, by the way, are called gilts because back in the day, the British government had such a good reputation that the bond certificate would literally have a gilt edge of gold leaf in order to convey the idea that the Brits always pay back.
And we have never reneged on
we
our
do
debts.
always pay back, but it's a question of how much the markets will charge you to lend you that money. That is what you call the gilt yield, and that is decided in the open market, okay? And we are now paying far more to borrow, Julia, than any other country in the G7. Easily, we're paying more to borrow than Morocco. We're paying more than 5% a year to borrow because the markets are worried about inflation in this country. They're worried the government's going to keep borrowing.
But why does that mean that they think that we won't pay the money back? Why are they charging us? They charge extra interest because we're a bigger risk, aren't we?
We're a bigger risk, and also because they think there'll be inflation in the UK, and they need to be compensated for that inflation, that annual inflation in the UK. Why do they think there'll be inflation? Because more government borrowing causes more inflation, right? Because government spending causes more inflation, because having all these green levies on our energy bills causes more inflation, because having trade unions who strike a lot causes more inflation. So we have an inflation problem in the UK. We're an outlier. The number that came out this morning actually is lower than expected, 2.6%. But I'm afraid it's still well above the bank's 2% target, the Bank of England's target, and it won't last because we've got lots of higher energy bills coming down the
line, even though we're going to get that 86p a week off for our household bills and everything. Here's the thing, okay, I really appreciate you explaining that. People who know this stuff, who can explain it to us mere mortals, is very, very useful to us. But here's the thing, I don't think there's much evidence that Andy Burnham, who's a very clever man, he's read all Shakespeare, blah, 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 has any real understanding of economics. And we know his new Chancellor, and I think most of us would agree that was a good appointment. That was a clever move. Thank God it's not Ed Miliband and it's John Healey. Is there any evidence that this is a government, from the appointments you've seen, from the little we know what Andy Burnham plans to do, that he has a actually fully fledged plan? I mean, he's talked about a 10-year plan that's going to be published in the autumn, but he's got a plan for how to get Britain growing again, because nothing is going to be achieved without growth. How is he going to do that? How is he going to fund it? And what he actually plans to do?
With the best will in the world, Julia, and like you, I'm a patriotic person. I want our government to do well. I want our country to do well. With the best will in the world, I don't see any evidence of a plan. I don't see anyone anywhere near the front bench that has any business experience whatsoever or any proper track record in economic policy making. And this government is clearly even more left-wing than Keir Starmer and Rachel from Accounts were when they were in government. And I say that with regret. I want the government to do well. I mean, for the Prime Minister to float the idea of, let's raise the personal tax threshold, which he did, and then say, the next day I was only joking. You cannot talk like this at a time when the government is scrambling around to borrow money at a reasonable rate of interest. It just makes you look as if you're making it up as you go along. In fact, it confirms you're making it up as you go along.
This is the thing. I mean, that was something that he said in an interview with The Times. This was something he said to journalists on Monday, on the day he became Prime Minister, and everyone was thinking, and this is something, raising the threshold. He said it was the biggest issue that was raised on the Makerfield doorsteps. I find that personally very hard to believe, actually. But everyone assumed that was something he would do, and then it was pointed out by a lot of people it would cost billions, and that it was actually a very inefficient way of helping people on the lowest incomes, because actually, helps people on middle incomes as well. But this is it. Am I not right in thinking that Andy Burnham called a friendly economist to ask for some advice about certain aspects of the economy, and that you were that economist?
Well, I talk to people across government all the time. You'd expect me to do that. I'm a, proper economic commentator.
Yeah. Was he asking your advice?
I talk to people in Reform all the time. I talk to the people in the Tories all the time. Now I've just been appointed director of the Centre for Policy Studies. I'm going to be doing that even more. And hopefully, Julia, with your permission, it won't stop me continuing to be a commentator.
Oh, we'd absolutely love you to carry on coming on the show.
If I may, let me just go back slightly and explain that personal threshold thing, because it will have left a few people bamboozled, and we don't want to do that. So basically, you don't pay tax for the first 12.5 grand you earn, right? Which means that very many low earners, people with little part-time jobs, they don't pay any tax at all. Students, and that's completely right, don't pay any tax at all. But once you get above 12.5 grand, you start paying tax. And the problem is that the basic state pension is getting towards 12.5 grand now. So they're going to start paying tax, which of course is ludicrous, the state giving with one hand and taking back with another. And that personal threshold, tax-free threshold, has been frozen, Julia. It was frozen by the Tories since 2021. and it's going to stay frozen thanks to decisions from Rachel Reeves until 2031.
Which is a stealth tax in itself.
Which is disgusting. Yeah. But more and more people are dragged into tax because politicians haven't got the bottle, frankly, to actually raise the headline rate of tax, which is a much more efficient way to do it. And for Andy Burnham to say, oh, I'm going to raise the personal threshold, and then say the next day, I'm not going to raise the personal threshold, is ridiculous. I happen to agree we should be raising the personal threshold, but we have to do it slowly, catchy monkey, and we have to do it as and when we meet deficit targets in order to reassure financial markets.
And that's the thing, because we can't... That's the thing. A lot of people want their taxes cut, but lots of people also want a lot of spending on things.
The markets will blow up if we do that. They won't believe us.
They want more spending on this and that. And the reality is the actual tax hit that the average earner has, low and average earners has in the UK, is far lower than most other European countries. We go, oh, they've got much better public services than us. Yeah, and they pay, on average, about a 10% point increase on their taxes, their basic rates of tax, to get that. And that's something that, frankly, we're not really coming to terms with. It's interesting, though, there's still some talk about possible wealth tax. A lot of people on this so-called soft left, which are, I mean, I'm sorry, they're hard left by most people's measures.
They are. If we're former hard right, they are definitely hard left, right?
Well, we're far right bigots, I mean, of course. But no, but we're looking. Apparently, yeah. I'm a fascist. I'm Hitler. I'm literally Hitler.
I'm amazed I'm even talking to you.
but you've got the situation where they talk about wealth tax. You know, the so-called mansion tax, bringing the threshold for that is down from 2 million to 1.5 million, which we hit a lot of ordinary family homes in large parts of London and the southeast. But there was talk about even raising the top rate of tax from 45% to 50% for top earners over 125 grand. That seems to be disappeared off the list. But there are lots of things that people on the left and lots of left-wing think tanks really would like Andy Burnham to do, and have a lot of faith that he will do. But the reality is most of these things don't actually bring in any money, do they? Because the people who've got that sort of money, they have a habit of leaving the country.
Well, there's a lot of kind of class neurosis and spite knocking around. There's a lot of people on the left who instinctively just want to take money from successful people because, frankly, they're very envious. It's just a character trait, I think. If you raise the top rate of tax, then you're going to end up with less money because people will just work less. People will find ways to avoid it, legally avoid it. And we've already seen from changes in the so-called non-dom regime, putting more taxes on wealthy business owners who spend a certain amount of time in the UK, have international lifestyles. You know, thousands, tens of thousands of them have left. Yeah. And when the top 1% of people earning are paying 30% of income tax, and the top 10% of people earning are paying 60% of income tax, you know, it may give you a kind of rush of adrenaline if you're a sort of trendy lefty saying, goodbye, rich people, goodbye. But it's absolutely moronic if you actually want to fund public services to say you want to fund. And look, a wealth tax, the top 1,000 families in the UK, they've got, say, £1 billion each. If you put a 2% annual wealth tax on, you're going to get 20 billion, right? And many of them will leave the country. You'll put a massive sign over the door in Britain, do not invest here. We've all gone completely crazy. And you might, if you are lucky, raise 10 or 15 billion quid, which is
in the first year.
grand in the first year, and then people will just leave. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. That's why pretty much every country that's introduced a wealth tax has then taken it away. It's spite, it's envy, it's class war. We should celebrate people who do well, who employ people. We shouldn't be envious, and we should be grateful that that top 1% of people want to live here because they're paying
all that
30%
tax
of all income
As
tax.
I've always said, if being a billionaire was that easy, we'd all be one, wouldn't we? Liam Halligan, great to talk to you. Economist Liam Halligan, Telegraph columnist, also author of the brilliant Substack. I can't recommend it enough. When the Facts Change. He knows his stuff. Appreciate that. Benedict Spence is still with me. I mean, it is fascinating, isn't it? Just I did like that Boris in a bomber jacket line. But again, I do really worry that the people in charge genuinely don't understand some basic economics. Not that the Tories were much better.
No, true. And this is, I think, part of the issue, which is that our system rewards people for trying to be popular for a short period of time, and they get that kind of dopamine hit, and then very quickly it all starts to unravel.
As for the voters...
Yeah, and I'm afraid that this is a slight issue.
Don't tax us more, tax them more and give us more.
I'm afraid that this is a bug with democracy that we have not actually found a solution to yet.
Do we need to go with dictatorship?
Well, it
you
depends.
or me?
You or me?
Who'd be more benign?
This is the thing. Everybody would probably be sitting here thinking that it would be more me. I'd be the more benign one. I don't think that's true at all. I think you'd be quite a nice dictator. I think I'd be ruthless. I've been posing uniforms
I think one could be benign and ruthless at the same. You'd be ruthless with the right people.
I'd be cutting. I'd be absolutely cutting on people's sartorial standards.
I'd like to say, as my husband, I am someone who thinks there is a right way and a wrong way to load a dishwasher. So I mean, I'm just saying.
Would you imprison people for the wrong way of putting the dishwasher? This could be quite fun, actually.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Should we split the country in half and have your benevolent dictatorship and my benevolent dictatorship, and we'll see which one ends really well.
Okay, who wants to be in mine? Get in touch. 12:47 is the time. We'll take a quick break. Let's talk about somewhere. Well, the dictatorship of the trans activists.
I don't want to live there.
Definitely don't want to live there. It continues apace. Civil servants are being told by the Cabinet Office that they will be disciplined if they don't actually use people's preferred pronouns, even if they are both biologically and grammatically incorrect. Well, would you give in to that? We'll talk to someone who definitely doesn't. Maya Forstetter, Chief Executive of Sex Matters, up next. This is Talk. Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense. Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:49 is the time. Let's talk about the latest madness in government, which has no sign of going away whatsoever under the new regime under Andy Burnham. And this is basically the trans activists in charge of everything. Let's talk about this with Maya Forstetter. She's Chief Executive of Sex Matters and joins us once again. Afternoon to you, Maya.
Hello, Julia.
First of all, let's talk about this. Civil servants, according to a document drawn up by the Cabinet Office, marked official sensitive, is basically going to warn civil servants they will be disciplined if they don't call transgender colleagues by their preferred name or gender, presumably, therefore, also, their preferred pronouns as well. And they could face what's called a formal sanction. Do we know what this formal sanction would be, and who would this apply to?
I mean, this document is better than what they had before.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe. But what they had before said you had the right to use whichever toilets you want and absolutely no misgendering. And so they've rolled back from that. But now they're in this weird halfway house where they say that people have to use the right toilets, but you can't use the right words for them. So how are you supposed to explain who's a man and who's a woman? Yeah. Where rules apply, so they're in a mess. And what we haven't seen this guidance. They've refused to make it public. But what we've seen in leaks that have made it into the papers is that they're saying that if you repeatedly and indiscriminately misgender your colleague, you might be subject to a misconduct investigation.
So this isn't someone sort of getting it wrong, in inverted commas, because they're actually getting it right. It's someone. It would be with intent, just sort of deliberately targeting them or something.
I mean, if someone complains about you, they're going to have to investigate.
Yeah.
But what they haven't said is, and therefore we're going to force you all to use, preferred pronouns. And they do say, in relation to my case, that gender critical belief is protected.
Well, that's what I wanted to come to, because this is something that you went to court over. You lost one, but I hate the fact that it's called a protected belief.
I know
that sex is real, because it's not a belief; it's a fact.
Exactly. And what they don't say in this guidance is that lack of belief in gender ideology is also protected. So most people don't say they're gender critical. Most people haven't even heard of this.
No.
But they know that if their colleague John says he's Jane, he's still a man. And they want to be able to say he still should not be allowed in the women's toilet.
I mean, I don't mind calling him Jane. If he can call himself,
He can change their name.
Wizzle, if he want. I don't care. But he wants to call himself Jane. But no, I mean, 5-10 years ago, I would have gone, I'll go along to be polite, I'd use his preferred pronouns. Now I wouldn't, because then you end up with a woman in court who's been raped, having to refer to her rapist as she and her penis. Won't do it. That's a slippery slope, and that's where you get the confusion. And I absolutely would be standing at the women's toilet door going, no, Jane, you ain't coming in. But these are, again, protected facts in our law. Why does the civil service keep getting this so wrong? And is this down to the fact that, again, we know Stonewall and other trans organisations they've totally captured the civil service and certainly captured Labour politicians. And the news that Bridget Phillipson, demoted from Education Secretary, but keeping her brief as Qualities and Women's Minister, sitting in the Cabinet. I think she can bring tea and biscuits in if she likes. But she's still in that role. And this is a woman who's gone out of her way as a trans maiden to not protect women's fundamental rights to our safe spaces.
I mean, to be fair, she did more than most. She finally produced the guidance, and
she didn't have a choice. You're much more forgiving than I am, because I can see where this has come from. I mean, this has come from really crazy trans guidance in the civil service. And what is shocking is that no one has lost their job. All of these people who promoted this crazy guidance, none of them have lost their job. It's being slowly pulled back to sanity, and this guidance they've just put, or they haven't put out yet, but this guidance, when we finally see it, feels like it's like a halfway house, and it's not going to stay there because it's incoherent. Is there going to be a legal challenge? I mean, I know one thing that Sex Matters has been doing, I mean, Free Speech Union as well, when they're representing people, because you say no one's lost their job. Actually, people leave their jobs all the time, particularly women, because they are, they're investigated over things like this, because they're simply going, no, I'm sorry, John isn't a woman, but he's not a woman. And we've seen what's happened to the nurses working in NHS hospitals, being forced to get undressed at their bra and knickers in front of men standing there leering at them, but because they've got a wig on, they're called women. I mean, there are clearly, there are victims of this. This is not a victimless crime. This is not why can't you just be nice, Maya and Julia? Why can't you just call whoever it is, but with the pink hair, what they want to be called? Because that's where it leads.
I think there are going to be more legal cases. There are going to be more individual legal cases, because people at work are going to say, I'm not going to use this language, and they're going to get into dispute with their employers, and those cases will have to go to court, and there will probably be more judicial reviews on bad guidance. But we need to see it first.
But the problem is, as it's happened with you and it's happened with so many people, the process is the punishment, isn't it? So even though you can win the case eventually, you're out of your job, everyone's looking at you, you're not a nice person, you're a transphobe, you're a bigot. And for a lot of people, particularly women, so many women are afflicted by this need to be thought of as a nice person. Never bothered me. But, and this puts people off speaking up. Whereas, in fact, if, 40 women just went, No, he's not using the toilet. I don't care what he wants to call himself. End of the matter. Job done or all walking out. If they did that, it wouldn't happen anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know, that says it all. That's sign. Now, can I urge anyone who's listening, who's a civil servant, you're probably listening because you're working from home, not getting anything done anyway, look at Sex Matters advice on this. Call them up, get advice. Join the Free Speech Union, get legal advice so you know what you can do and stand firm.
Absolutely. Everyone has rights to protection and employment. They cannot make it a hostile environment for people who don't agree with this stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to be going up to the bloke every time and saying you're not a woman, you're not a woman. But
exactly, you mustn't harass your colleagues. Yeah. You shouldn't bully them. You shouldn't make fun of them. You know, you should get on with their job. They get on with their job. You all follow the rules.
And use the right toilet.
Yes, exactly.
There we are.
Have different beliefs. People have different beliefs.
But some of us have factual-based beliefs. That's the difference. Maya Forster, Chief Executive of Sex Matters, who's a much nicer person than I am. Benedict Spence. Apparently, we're not allowed to belittle or bully our colleagues. So.
Why?
Not sure we can have you in the studio anymore.
How are we going to do our jobs?
Guess
this doesn't
that
work.
relationship's over.
Oh boy, well, it's been nice. It's been nice to work with you. It was good fun at times, but no, it turns out it wasn't fun. All this time I was kidding myself.
You get to HR now.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are they again? I don't know what that is.
I don't. They're probably on an away day, learning how to use pronouns.
Oh well.
I guess probably.
Such is life. I couldn't work in an office environment.
Can you work in an environment like that? No. I would really struggle.
I can barely work
I've got to
here.
be honest with you. We've got various radio stations here. There's been rather a lot more trans flags than I find acceptable. But
I thought those were Argentine flags. Oh.
Well, apparently, it's Pride Month every month. Everyone knows that.
It's somebody's appreciation.
I don't know why these things need to be brought into the office at all.
I don't know. I don't know why I have to be here at all, frankly.
I tell you, there's someone. He comes in draped in his trans flag every single morning. When he bothers to turn up, Ian Collins is back.
I put them all up.
Yeah.
That's where I've been for the last day and a half.
You've been a bit poorly.
So I got an
bit of drama.
Hour and a half into the show on Monday.
And then did the caller say he has to go?
And then, I just got abused, frankly, yes.
It's
a good job we've got thick skin here, isn't it? Goodness me. No, yeah, and I just thought, I can't do it. You just hit that tipping point. You go, nope, this can't happen. So 2 o'clock, I won't go into the grimy details, but I had to disappear. Did another half an hour, then left, went home, slept like a donkey. I don't know if is that a metaphor? I don't know.
Want to say that I had that morning, well, at lunchtime, I had shown Ian a video of me dancing to Shakira on an all-day party.
You did. I was going to mention that.
I'm worried that may perhaps have made you feel ill.
Well, the doctor said Shakiritis. Is that what that is?